Well, folks, I don't know how to start this show other than speech. Very few moments like this, folks, as an Iowa fan or as a sports fan this night. Enjoy the next 2 nights. Enjoy the next 36 hours because this is a special, special moment. Athletic with time to think about how to see my computer's a bit overloaded. We're overwhelmed with response here, I guess, this evening. So we'll try to get those technical glitches ironed out here over the next, I don't know, 2 hours. Be here, whatever the case. We're here. We're here talking about an absolutely incredible evening featuring Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes knocking off a team that was on a 40-game winning streak. We're talking about the South Carolina Gamecocks. And again, final scores you see on the screen, 77-73 in the Final Four. We've got our call lines open, folks. Here's the number to call, 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601. You can also call in by means of the StreamYard link, which you can find in the description below. I also threw it up in the live chat. I don't care what you say when you're on here, as long as it's PG, as long as it's kid friendly, right? If you call in to say go Hawks, that's fine with me. All of that goes this evening, folks. There's no dumb calls. Please be a part of this unbelievable celebration and this unbelievable evening. It's not over yet, right? Coach Gary Close texted me right after the game and reminded me it's not over yet, right? There's one more item of business still on the ledger. So, again, let's get to our first caller of the night. And our call line, of course, as always here during our Iowa men's basketball postgame show is sponsored by Iowa Smokehouse. Let's head to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey, it's Alan. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing fairly good, Alan. How are you?
I grew up in the Northeast, so I grew up watching a lot of UConn women's basketball. So to me, this performance tonight by Caitlin reminded me so much of Diana Taurasi when she won her first of 3 championships. It's one of the best performances, even though she struggled from the floor in the second half. Just an all-around performance. It's an unbelievable performance. To me, it had a lot of Hoosiers theme to it. Again, the smaller girls against 3 6'4", 6'5", 6'7" girls on the opposite side. It was an unbelievable performance. There's no words to describe. Again, the best individual performance I've seen in the women's game since Diana Taurasi. There's no words to describe her performance tonight. It's unbelievable.
Caitlin Clark, 41 points tonight, 8 assists, 6 boards. And you brought up, Alan, the struggles from behind the arc, 5 of 17 from the field. She took 31 shots and had 8 turnovers. And you may look at that and say, well, it's a lot of volume, a lot of shots taken, a lot of turnovers. She accounted for every single point in the fourth quarter, whether either assisted on every single point or scored every single point. And I mean, frankly, you just look at her durability, Alan. I think that's maybe the most impressive part of all of this. She is the most electric player in all of college basketball. And I'm including the men's game. I understand they're different sports, but she is the most electric player in all of college basketball. And she basically played 40 minutes tonight. She had a couple quick breathers. The fact that she's been able to stand up to, and in this game, the most physical team in college basketball, a team that just pushes you around and dominates you physically. The fact that she was able to play from start to finish and then step up and make a bunch of free throws to finish this game off and literally didn't even break a sweat doing it. I agree with you. Just there's no words left to describe what we're witnessing with Caitlin Clark. It's just simply greatness.
And 2 other players I have to talk about tonight. First, Monica Zanano. Again, she was outsized by the 3 bigs, and she played with so much heart. It was unbelievable. But the one player I thought who played extremely well, and they mentioned it during the broadcast, was Kate Martin. Her defensive performance was unreal against those guards. It was amazing. I mean, Cook was so good in the first half, but again, she struggled in the second half, and you got to credit Martin the way she defended her in the second half.
Well, and how about 7 rebounds? And she had 3 or 4 in the first quarter right away, right off the bat. And even though they struggled mightily on the glass, nobody's denying that. Kate Martin set the tone early. And if you don't build that early 9-point lead, Alan, this game could have been totally different. I know South Carolina fought back. They took the lead, but Iowa basically established itself early. Kate Martin was a big part of that defensively on the glass, and they never looked back. And as crazy as it sounds to say this, this was a pretty convincing performance. Iowa led at the end of every single quarter.
I think what was important was I believe they were up 9 in the second, and South Carolina took that 1-point lead, but they never faltered. I mean, they came back, got a 1-point lead at halftime, built it up to, I think, 6 or 7 points. So again, they were down 1, maybe in the latter stages of the second quarter, could have easily been down 4 or 5 points, but they came back with some big buckets. Both Clark and Zanano, the great give and go from Clark to Zanano near the end of the first half. But again, They never faltered. They never wavered when they were losing by one near the end of that first half. So amazing performance. And again, I grew up as a huge UConn women's fan, and to me, this is the best individual performance since Taurasi in that second national championship. So it's an amazing performance. And one final thing? I mean, I think I read it this week. The viewership in that Iowa Louisville game was better than any NBA game in ESPN this season, and I bet you tonight even eclipsed that. That's what made it so special.
Absolutely. And I had somebody ask me right after the game, can Iowa beat LSU? Sure. I mean,
yes, absolutely.
They can. I'm not saying they will. They may not, right? As I said at the outset, Alan, Gary Close made an excellent point as soon as this game finished. You cannot allow, if you're Iowa, you cannot allow this to become your national championship, right? You got one more game left, and it's a quick turnaround. They're playing late. I mean, they didn't finish this game until almost 11 p.m. Central Time. They're going to be playing at 2:30 p.m. Central Time on Sunday. Again, as fans, you got to enjoy the next 36 hours. As players, they got to get some rest and get ready because they got an opportunity to blow this win out of the water by making total history on Sunday.
And a perfect comparison, you look at this victory, it's very similar to when the U.S. men's hockey team beat Russia in the semifinals, and people have thought, oh my God, they won it all, but they had to beat Finland in the championship game. Again, a win like this is so important to the program. Again, I think it's the biggest win in the history of the Iowa women's and even Iowa athletic department program, but they still have to come back and beat LSU, and they have to play better perimeter defense. Again, South Carolina barely hit 20% from the 3-point line. I know that girl hit the 3 threes in the second half, but they have to do a better job defensively on the perimeter against LSU. But again, they can't just rest on their laurels with a victory like this. They have to come back and win on Sunday afternoon. But again, great show, Corey, as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate the call, sir. Yeah, and here's the deal, folks. If I seem subdued or not quite as enthused as you'd expect, it's because I don't know how to handle this moment. That's what it comes down to. Like, I don't know how to react to this other than exactly what Kelly said in our chat. Just you're in shock, and I mean, it's just pure adulation and joy, and so proud of Caitlin Clark and this whole team. So happy for Lisa Bluter, for the coaching staff, for the team managers, for everybody. This has been as special of a 3-week period in Iowa athletics history. And yes, I get it. I'm not as old as a lot of people who are watching this show, so you can say maybe I don't have perspective. I see a lot of people who are older than me in the chat who are saying very similar things. I don't know how old Bill is, but he says biggest Iowa win, men's or women's basketball. Probably true. Probably true. Let's go to our next caller on our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Paul, welcome to the show, Paul.
Hello, Corey. How are you today?
I am doing wonderful. How are you, Paul?
Good. Before everything starts here, I think we should give our thoughts to those who were affected by the storms today. What a weird day in Iowa history. You have one of the worst tornado outbreaks in a while here, and then you have this game, and fitting way to name your channel today, from the Hawkeye of the Storm, Corey. The way this day went.
It's no. All jokes aside, no, you're absolutely right. Certainly, thoughts go out to the people who were affected today. You know, starts out a weird sunny day. It's 78 degrees. I'm talking, of course, from Ames, and we endured a weird hailstorm here in Ames that was unlike anything I've ever seen. I haven't been in a lot of hailstorms, Paul, but it was very odd to say the least. And of course, as you brought out the tornado outbreak, not only across Iowa, but Little Rock affected, and just a weird day in history. You're absolutely right. And I think James made a great point. I didn't get his chat up on the screen, but this is good for Iowa people who I understand that things a lot bigger than basketball, but it's good for the state. A lot of tragedy today, and something to distract people who have dealt with loss and dealt with suddenness and Again, doesn't take away from those tragedies, but just a great moment for the state and for Iowa, the university.
Yeah, it's a good pick-me-up for the way this day went, Corey. So kudos to everyone out there, and hopefully they're able to watch the game. I'm sure even those people without power found some way to watch the game today or listen to it.
Absolutely.
To the game, I was telling everybody at work, the first team to 70 is going to win, and Iowa was the first team to 70 today. I also said if Iowa can get out field goal percentage, South Carolina, they're going to win. If they can, and they did 49-39. And if they can get their turnovers under 15, they're going to win this game. They had 10. So not to brag, but I feel kind of vindicated a little bit. But anyway, they had to have a perfect game tonight, and it wasn't quite perfect rebounding wise, but we knew that was going to happen. But the pick and rolls were great tonight. We just killed them in the paint, and I'm just amazed that this team was able to do this. I don't think anybody in the country respected Iowa very much. I think they expected them to maybe go to the Final Four, but I think they definitely surprised the establishment of basketball tonight with this win.
Paul, I didn't expect him to go to the Final Four. I'll be quite frank. My bracket, when it came out, I had him losing to Stanford in the Elite Eight. And frankly, that's nothing against Iowa. I go back to the regular season. They struggled on defense more often than not, frankly. They won a lot of games by means of their offense. And as the season wore on, I started to realize, hey, this is a different game. This is not the same as the men's game. And this team is so much better offensively than any other team that I've seen. And there's nobody in the, like when I watch Caitlin Clark play, Paul, and you probably agree with this, I would guess. When you watch Caitlin Clark play, I don't know how anybody in their right mind could argue that she's not the best player in the world.
In the women's game right now, she might be. It'll be interesting to see. Just a side note, it'll be interesting to see if she is recruited for Team USA for the women's game in 24. It'll be interesting to see if they do that.
I understand. I mean, we understand the deficiencies and athleticism whatever. This is there's no doubt about it. She changes the game. She's changed the game for a lot of people. We've got 410 people watching this show, my puny little show here at 11:20 at night. And a lot of that is because of Caitlin Clark. And she's changed the game of basketball. And even though this team is not great defensively, they got absolutely obliterated on the glass, Paul. They got absolutely killed. I said going into the game, they needed to limit the damage to a 15 rebound deficit. They got out rebounded by 24. Offensive rebounds 26-5 in favor of the Gamecocks, and yet the Hawkeyes win. 14 of 14 from the free throw line. That's a big stat in this, Paul.
Yep, that's what won the game was their free throw shooting. They were perfect.
You could argue that's what won the game. South Carolina was there 13 times, made 9. Not bad, 70%. But a lot better making 14 of them. And again, those 5 shots is the difference between winning and losing. So, again, incredible. I will openly admit I did not expect this team to make a Final Four. I didn't think the defense was good enough. But as the season has wore on, I started to realize, especially as this tournament wore on, this team does not have to be even average. I mean, I think they've been playing average defense in this tournament, but their offense is so darn good, and the chemistry that Caitlin Clark has with Monica Sanano and their understanding of angles and the 3-point threats that are Gabby Marshall and Kate Martin and Warnock. And honestly, Paul, it doesn't matter that Gabby Marshall didn't do much offensively today, because how many times did we see Caitlin Clark drive the ball to the basket and make almost an uncontested layup because the help man refused to help because they didn't want to come off of Gabby Marshall.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what killed him tonight, Corey, was Caitlin made herself a dual threat from the arc and her driving to the basket. I don't think South Carolina was expecting her to drive it as much, but they were letting her drive, and Iowa just took advantage of that. I mean, I don't know how many layups they had in the paint tonight, but it was just incredible. They came in with a different type of strategy tonight. I mean, every game they've come out with a different type of strategy, and I don't know how you scout them. I don't know how LSU is going to scout them because you just don't know what they're going to do offensively.
Yeah, and like I said, not taking anything away from Clark and Sonano, but those layups, those those shots by Sonano didn't make a ton from the field, right? 6 field goals on the night. She's going through 6'7" Cardoso much of the night, but a lot of those buckets inside in the paint around the rim. You got to give a lot of credit to the established shot making that those teammates of Clark and Sonano's, what they've established here, especially in the last 2 months, and Gabby Marshall's hot streak, etc. And you're right about LSU. I have not watched a ton of LSU basketball. Of course, I watched the Final Four game today against Virginia Tech. They're long and they're athletic. They're not anything close to South Carolina as it relates to length and athleticism. So I don't know. I think this is going to be a mental storyline more than a physical one. Even though it's a somewhat quick turnaround, it's a 36-hour turnaround. They got to be back on that court and ready to go for a national title. But this team, if they play like they did tonight, they will beat anybody, because I think South Carolina from top to bottom is by far, I hate to say this. I mean, I shouldn't say I hate to say this. I think it's a fact. I think they're the best. Is it fair to say, Paul, that South Carolina is the best team in the country?
They were the best women's team in the country this year, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, they were undefeated. Yeah, they were undefeated.
Yeah, they weren't the best. Yeah, they weren't the best tonight. And that's what this tournament's all about. Iowa was one of the best all season. They were the best tonight. They could potentially be the best in March Madness in this tournament. We'll see on Sunday. But that's what this tournament's all about. Iowa's been on the other end of this. They were on the other end last year when they lost to Creighton in the second round. It's a one-and-done format. If Iowa and South Carolina play 10 times, Paul, Iowa probably wins 2, maybe 1. I really do believe that. But it's all about getting up for the day and getting up for the moment, and Iowa did exactly that.
That's exactly right. And what was amazing to me is they took Boston out of the game. I mean, she got in foul trouble early, but she was not even a factor in this game. Only 8 points. She got a lot of rebounds tonight, but they totally took her out of the game. And I think another thing that people aren't realizing is Iowa only had 10 turnovers tonight. That is really, really good in the girls' game. That's good for any game.
Well, especially against that defense. Especially against
that defense. Yeah, so that limited the points off turnover for South Carolina big time. So I think that's a big thing. They really took care of the ball. The best they took care of the ball this whole tournament.
And I'll say one more thing, Paul, and I'll let you slide unless you have something else. Let's not underestimate the impact that Iowa's responses had. And I'm talking responses whenever South Carolina made a push and Iowa would go up 8 or 9 or go up 5 or 6. South Carolina pushed it back to a 1-point deficit, or they took the lead a couple of times. Every single time Caitlin Clark came up with a big shot, or she made a big play for someone else and someone else made a big shot. And again, that's what this tournament's all about, making big plays at big times and responding. Basketball's a game of runs. And, this team made a believer out of a lot of people this evening.
Absolutely. And I saw a stat tonight on the broadcast. South Carolina only led this game for 5 minutes.
Yeah. I mean,
and their largest lead was 2.
Yeah, I don't know that I would say domination. That's unfair to South Carolina because, I mean, the stats indicate it wasn't domination, but it's an incredibly impressive win to be able to do that against this team, and a team that normally does not trail at halftime and almost never has trailed at the end of 3 quarters and has never trailed at the end of 4.
Yeah, and that's absolutely. And I think Caitlin Clark's interview afterwards pretty kind of summed it up. I mean, Iowa had nothing to lose in this game. They had nothing to lose. And I think South Carolina, all the pressure was on them for the undefeated season, all that stuff. And it is so hard in any sport to go undefeated. It's so hard. And I don't know if it was a mental factor tonight, but the way Iowa came out of the gates tonight, I think they established early in the mental game that you're going to have to beat us to win this game. We're not going to make it easy for you. And that just set the tempo of the game. And I mean, you can't say enough about Lisa Bluter and her coaching staff. I mean, they just threw a curveball at South Carolina tonight. They just seem to have nothing on the offensive end for Iowa. And this is supposedly the best defensive team in the country.
Yeah. Yeah, and Iowa put up 77. Anything else, Paul?
No, I'll let everybody else talk, but I'm just really appreciative of you doing this. And once again, I hope everybody in Iowa got a chance to watch this game, and those affected by the storms, we're thinking about you. And hopefully no one, hopefully we had no casualties today, but thoughts and prayers to everybody there.
Absolutely. Appreciate the call, sir. All right. Big breath in. We got a lot of people here waiting on hold, and we appreciate everybody being here. Again, in case you're living in a hole, Iowa defeating South Carolina 77-73 in the NCAA tournament. The Hawkeyes making the national title game for the first time in the history of the program. The biggest win in the history of the program came this evening, folks, and it's one of the biggest wins in the history of Iowa athletics. I'm hesitant to say it is the biggest win, because I'm sure some people who've been around a long time would tell me that you can't discount the national titles in wrestling. You can't discount some of the biggest Iowa football wins in history. Iowa men's basketball, go back to the Tom Davis years, and you go back. I mean, there are big wins in all of those respective sports. I don't know how one compares to this. I don't want to just live in the moment. I'd love to hear from some of the older fans here who can give me some perspective that I don't have. But maybe we'll get to that here in a second. Do want to thank this team, Iowa Smokehouse down in Albia. And we're thinking about Iowa Smokehouse because I know Iowa Smokehouse, or the Ottumwa Albia area, was affected by some of the storms this evening. We wish the best to our friends down at Iowa Smokehouse. Support them by visiting iowasmokehouse.com for a better quality snack for game day or whatever the case may be. You'll get this special deal of 15% off your order, folks, by using the code Hawkeye. Celebrate with some meat. How about some beef jerky, some meat sticks, some steak bites, etc. And in addition to putting in your order with 15% off with the code Hawkeye, you'll get free shipping with $50 orders. And then while you're waiting for your shipment, how about you go over to Casey's or go over to Hy-Vee or go over to whatever stores in your area and buy some Iowa Smokehouse for Sunday's game. How about that for a payoff? Get some Iowa Smokehouse. Get ready for the national title game on Sunday. We appreciate Iowa Smokehouse being a part of this show throughout the month of March. And is it a coincidence that the Iowa women have made this run ever since Iowa Smokehouse started sponsoring this show? I'll leave that up for everybody else to speculate on. All right, let's go back to our phone lines. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Zach, how you doing, Corey?
I'm doing great, Zach. How are you, sir?
I'm in shock.
You and a lot of other people, sir.
I mean, I had him going into the Final Four. I had South Carolina winning it all. I was just hoping tonight would be a close game and they wouldn't get blown out. But wow, talk about a gutty performance.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are in the same boat. I know the chats and the comments are pouring in here on YouTube, but I think speechless is the right word. And like I said, I feel bad that I'm not saying more, but I don't know what you really say in a situation like this. So
exactly. And I know you put the stat up about the O boards, but the biggest O board was McKenna's with 14 seconds left.
Huge. Yeah.
And boy, she got beat up in those last 14 seconds too. Good God.
Yeah, and I'll say this, Zach, just full disclosure, just trying to be fair and objective here. Iowa didn't rebound well for a couple of reasons. South Carolina is incredibly long and incredibly proficient at rebounding the basketball, right? They're obviously very well coached.
Right.
I thought there were missed calls, some over-the-back calls that weren't called. I understand that. I acknowledge that. But I will say this. There were other plays where Iowa just didn't go after the ball. You cannot allow the ball to bounce. When you're fighting for offensive or you're fighting for defensive rebounds, there were times where I felt Iowa, I understand you're going with a short rotation and you're getting beat up, and mentally I'm sure you're exhausted, and physically, and it's easier said than done. But there were times where I thought Iowa didn't quite give the effort they needed to on the defensive glass. But you're right. That rebound by McKenna Warnock was massive. And here's the other part of this. You saw, Zach, Iowa said, hey, we're going to make you make threes. We're going to double and triple down on Cardoso and on Boston, and we're going to make you make threes. And for the most part, South Carolina couldn't do that, but the result was long shots equal long rebounds. So it creates even more of a difficulty. Even when you were boxing out effectively, all of a sudden now you've got long rebounds, you got balls banging off the iron, and now that length of Cardoso and Boston and these different ladies on South Carolina's roster, all of a sudden they're able to eat you up alive on the glass because of that length and because of the long board. So that's kind of my take. I did not expect Iowa to be able to survive that type of a deficit, but I think if you're trying to explain how they did so, it's partly a result of how Iowa defended South Carolina.
Yep, and they kind of threw that same defense at Louisville. Stop the two best players, and okay, everybody else, can you shoot?
Yeah.
And if not, that's how they made their big run. I think it wasn't the third quarter last week against Louisville, but I think Bluter and all the team had said their loss at Maryland was kind of their turning point in the season, saying we're never doing this ever again, and they have not lost since that game.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting what this can potentially do for recruiting.
Well, they've they're in excellent position to capitalize regardless of what happens on Sunday. Honestly, regardless of what would have happened today, Caitlin Clark's been a big part of that. And let's not forget, she is coming back next year. She could come back for 2 more years. Yeah. This program has an opportunity, and I don't think that's hyperbole. I'd like to get other people's opinions on this as well. I don't think it's hyperbole or out of this world to think that this game and this run and what this team is doing could be a program changer moving forward. Like, I'm not saying Iowa's going to be a dynasty. I'm not saying that at all. Believe me, I'm not saying that. But they have not been elite. They haven't been. Like, we've seen that. Even during the, I think back to 2019 when they made the Elite Eight, and they go up against Baylor and they get beaten handily. Baylor was in a different league. I compare it to Iowa football 2015. They're 12-0. You're thinking, hey, this team's really good. They go out and they get absolutely slaughtered by Christian McCaffrey and Stanford, right? It's always seems to be that reality check with Iowa athletics programs where it's like, we're not actually as good as some of the best teams in the country. And I don't know that the Iowa women are there anymore. And they've done it without having the horses, without having the athletes. They've done it on the shoulders of a generational player in Caitlin Clark, a generational post in Monica Sonano, and I think tremendous coaching, a bunch of shooters who have bought into their roles, and I don't know how else to explain it, but you're absolutely right. This could be a pivotal point in history of this program, not only on the recruiting trail, but moving forward perception-wise, and it will be interesting to see because this is not something we've ever seen. We've never been down this road before, so we don't know the end game.
No, and it's hard not to discount either. This is I think now the 91st game those starters have played together.
Yeah.
So
and a lot of them, most of them are. Let's not forget, Molly Davis is back next year. I know her time has been reduced, but she will be back. Gabby Marshall's back. Kate Martin is back.
Yep, and Feuerbach will be back.
Feuerbach will be back. They will add Kenise Johnson-Etienne, who may redshirt. You hope that they need a big to develop. Hannah Stolke wasn't great. That's what's crazy. They did this without a great performance from Hannah Stolke tonight. They did it without a great performance from Hannah Stolke, and they did it with foul trouble to Monica Sonano.
It really defies logic.
What's great about sports, Zach?
Yep, and I know that Caitlin is that mold. We may not be the most athletic, we may not be the best defensive team, but they play for each other and they play together, which is basically their mantra right now. And wow, I can't imagine. I think 6,500 season tickets this last year. I can't imagine how much that's going to go up for next year.
I agree, and I just hope Iowa fans. I know there were plenty of Iowa fans down in Dallas for the game tonight. I hope South Carolina fans throw those tickets on the secondhand marketplace, and I hope Iowa fans flock to Dallas over the next 36 hours because, first of all, great city to go to this time of year, right? But second of all, boy, it'd be great. I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's a shorter drive from Baton Rouge to Dallas
Right.
than it is from Iowa City to Dallas, but I'm guessing you're going to have more Iowa fans than Tiger fans on Sunday.
I think there'll be Iowa fans probably trying to jump on those. I mean, because it sounded like they were in good attendance out at Seattle. So
yeah.
Yep. But I think I saw something funny this morning that since Caitlin Clark has joined Iowa, she has averaged more points than the Iowa football team.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
but oh well, we're going to the champion. They're going to the championship. And hopefully they can just keep on rolling and bring a national title, and then it'll be a Bluter statue next to Gable.
Absolutely. Thank you, Zach. We appreciate hearing from you as always.
Yep. Have a great evening.
Thank you, sir. All right. Great stuff, folks. Great stuff. And I'm just taking calls as we go here. We've got some super chats to get to here in a couple of minutes. We will get to those. I promise I'm not trying to miss the super chats from folks. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call in line. And I believe we've got Chris on hold. Chris, welcome to the show.
Corey, where's your shots at? I was expecting some shots being ripped during the podcast and some beers being drank. Where's the celebratory drinks for you?
Still not past the shock, Chris. I will. Here's the deal. I'm going to ask Kyle in our chat or in our queue. He's helped out the show on a number of fronts. Kyle, would you please do this for me since Chris just summoned this? Please go to my preview video on YouTube, and I want you to pull up receipts from South Carolina fans on that channel. All right? Please do that. And if you can at least, I don't know if you can, to figure out how to do that, maybe send them to me if you can screenshot some of those and send them to me on Twitter. That way I have them all concisely ordered. So, yes, thank you for that, Chris.
We'll save those for Sunday. We'll save those for Sunday for you.
Yeah, I got a kick out of some of the comments, responses to people who took offense to me giving a preview of the game and keys to victory. But anyways, I'm not, like I said, reality has not yet set in for me, Chris.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, it's like, yeah, I won the national championship. That doesn't sound, those words don't really mesh too well. That doesn't usually happen for us. I mean, wrestling, it does, but yeah, just insane. And I think very fitting Iowa that we had to play 5-on-8 for the last 2 minutes. I don't know what was going on there. That jump ball call was just insane. I mean,
what'd you think about that? That jump ball call is one of the worst calls I think I've seen in the history of me watching basketball. I'm serious. I have not seen a call so egregious. And I've always been critical of how that specific call is officiated, the jump ball in the women's game. That needs to be completely revamped in the offseason. These officials in the women's game have no idea what they're doing as it relates to officiating jump balls. Was it Boston that had her arm completely wrapped around McKenna Warnock? How is that a jump? How is that a tie-up?
Yeah.
So
Fran was in like the 10th row. I don't know if you saw that, but I thought he should maybe give a quick stare down to that. I was hoping he'd maybe walk down and maybe give him a quick stare down.
Yeah, what would you have done if he had done that? If he had jumped on the court and gotten escorted out, what would you have done?
Yeah. But the mental toughness of this team is actually just so impressive. I mean, they could have folded so many times. South Carolina made a couple runs, and it feels just even in the Georgia game during the Sweet 16, it feels like every time that they get some adversity, someone, not necessarily even Caitlin, someone steps up and just makes a play. This team is just so mentally tough, and it's great to see because these are the games that, I don't know, we probably have the same Iowa fandom. I've been a fan for probably like 20 years, and we get to these games, but we don't win them generally, and it's nice to actually just come through and actually win a big game like this. It just is awesome.
Yeah, but like I said earlier, this is rare grounds that we're standing on, and I saw James in the private chat said, "Well, no room for celebrating yet." I think we can celebrate as fans, as the players. You're going to celebrate this win. You've got to flush it in less than 24 hours. There's no 24-hour rule here because you've got to prep for LSU. And LSU does get a bit of an advantage in the fact that they did not just play South Carolina. They played a really good Virginia Tech team, but not South Carolina. And they also get those extra 2.5 hours of rest. So, you can't cry over spilled milk. It is what it is. But there's still work to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. Like Patrick Mahomes, it's crazy that Iowa is like, I mean, granted it's Caitlin, but I mean, Iowa is just in the spotlight. It felt like everyone was, on Twitter, it felt like everyone was watching that game. It's just great to see the exposure for the program. And I think our fans showed out so awesome. That was so cool to see this many Hawkeyes fans make the trip to Dallas. It's not like it's an easy trip to get there. And we probably had 10,000 fans in the building today. And it was cool to see ESPN. They had the fan, like their studio on the court with the fans just chanting IOWA at the end of the game. And it's just like, no one can ever question our fan base. I get a lot football, men's basketball. It's like we always have this like, oh, we don't deserve to be in these spots. This fan base deserves so much. This is a top 20 fan base. Don't ever let anyone say that we don't deserve to be a top 25 program in any sport. This fan base is great. We have the infrastructure. Like there's no reason we should be a middling team. We deserve the best in all sports, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I've even accused Iowa fans of being loyal to a fault as it relates to some situations. So they will show up in droves on Sunday, and you're right. I don't know what the official count would have been for this evening, but there will be, as much as it's not a real easy drive. I will say it's a pretty easy flight, and I saw T. Hank here in our chat. He wants to know if I'm coming to Dallas for the game on Sunday. I won't say either way on that, but I think that'd be a tough one for me at this point. But I would love to. I was just in American Airlines Center a couple months ago for a Mavs game, but great venue.
What's your Are you from Dallas, or like what's your Dallas? Because you're like a Mavs fan, or do you have what made you become a Mavs fan? Not to get off subject, but
I've been a Mavs fan my whole life. I don't really have the answer to that question. My early memories of watching Dallas was like 2005. I would have been like 9 years old or something like that. I just loved watching Dirk Nowitzki and Josh Howard and Jason Terry and eventually the championship team in 11. I don't know. I just took to the Mavs. We don't have a pro sports team here in the state of Iowa anyways.
Yeah.
And, those San Antonio Dallas series, that rivalry was just special growing up. And so, yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed with recent transactions that franchise made, but it is what it is. I enjoyed being in American Airlines Center here a few months ago. I'd love to be back. Like I said, I'd love to be back for Sunday, but are you making it down, Chris?
I wish. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it, but yeah, I would love to. Everyone that made the trip, they are not regretting it right now to be in the building, especially tonight. That's just an amazing experience. I couldn't believe how expensive those tickets were. It was like $300 for the nosebleeds for a women's bet. I
didn't see that. I did not see that. So.
Yeah. But yeah, unbelievable. I feel like we had nothing to lose tonight, but now I feel like we do have something to lose on Sunday. It feels like I wouldn't be disappointed if we don't win it, but it would kind of at this point. Let's just win the Natty at this point. Let's go. I mean,
You wouldn't be you said you wouldn't be disappointed if they don't win it. Is that what you just said?
I mean, I would. I mean, I'd be disappointed,
Come
but
on.
I wouldn't be like devastated. I would be. Actually, I think I would be. Actually, like it would feel like it would kind of. Yeah,
my guess is they're the favorites now, right? I don't think LSU's the favorite.
I don't know.
I
don't know enough about women's metric. Yeah, I don't. I bet it's my guess is Iowa -2, but I think it's going to be less than you. I think it'll be closer than you think. I think LSU is a good team. I think it'll be a tough game, but yeah.
They're both in the national championship. For
yeah. All right, I'll let you get to other callers.
Thank you, Chris.
Go Hawks! Let's win it.
Appreciate it, sir. Thank you for the call. All right, great stuff. We've got a bunch of people here waiting, and we've got, looks like, a special guest who has joined us here, so we're going to get to him in just a second, but we've got Michael who's been waiting on our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, that was unbelievable, wasn't it? I mean, I think going into the game, I was remembering the game Iowa versus Baylor in 2019. Yep. You know, because South Carolina is kind of similar in that they got size. Like we had to face Kalani Brown and Lauren Cox. And I was worried that, you know, even if Caitlin Clark had a great game, that this game, I wouldn't say it was going to get ugly, but I thought it might get really, really tough for us just to compete because, you know, because of the size. And I thought, I mean, but what can you say about, I think the thing that gets overlooked is our defense because we gave up a bunch of rebounds, but I thought we played really physical. We made it hard on them. Like, it wasn't like they could get whatever they wanted. I mean, you know, to hold, you know, a team that scored 86 on Maryland to 73 is, I guess pretty good comparatively.
I agree. Yeah. And they executed the game plan. I mean, the game plan was pretty clear. They were going to pack down low and not allow Boston to go off. And they were going to make, and I thought that was, I mean, like going into the game from my naive perspective, that was the way you play South Carolina. Make them beat you from outside. It's the same way that Farley Dickinson played Purdue, right?
Right.
They said, hey, we're not going to let Zach Edey go off. We're going to make them make threes. And if they make threes, you tip your cap and you say, have a nice rest of your tournament. You're probably going to win the national title. And South Carolina did not make threes tonight. What was the final stats for tonight's game? For the game, South Carolina from behind the arc, they were 4 of 20. So 23s is probably a few more than they'd like to take. But Iowa just dared them to make threes. And I will say this, I give credit to Raven Johnson, the 21% three-point shooter who Caitlin Clark basically said, you suck from behind the arc. You can't do anything, and I don't believe you can make shots. She made shots. I give Raven Johnson credit, and that's how you respond in that situation. But there's a reason it was. I think Lisa Bluter drew up the game plan the way she did, and in the end, Raven Johnson for the game from 3 was 3 of 6, but Boston, of course, missed the late one. Beal was 0 of 4. Cook was 0 of 3. Thompson was 0 of 2. The game plan worked. Hall was 1 of 4.
Yeah. Well, one thing I did note about Carolina was even though they have players like, I think Bree Beal was like, I guess 39% from 3 on the season. They had they had some good 3-point shooters. But one thing I noted was even with their best 3-point shooters, it was like feast or famine. Like one game they're going to go 2 for 3 or even 100%. And then the next game, they're not going to make any threes. So I felt like if you run into Carolina on a day that they don't make any threes, it's going to be hard for them, especially because at the beginning of the game, I felt that we forced them to play so late in the shot clock because we kept denying inside and they were never looking to take outside shots. So because they had to rush everything, you know, in the final 10 seconds, that's where we got some of the turnovers and the leak outs and stuff.
And again, I was going to say, Michael, real quick, the only thing I would say to that is if you had told me pregame that Iowa would get out rebounded 49-25, I'd have told you, no, they're not winning that game.
Yeah.
I just think that I don't know how you overcome a deficit like that, but they did.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it was partly due to the fact that, you know, Carolina just kept missing threes. I mean, there was, we have, like you said, 4 for 20. And then offensively we were pretty darn good. I mean, I think the game really reminded me of actually South Carolina against UCLA, because we played a very similar defense to UCLA that they did in the round of, I guess, the Sweet 16. They only gave up 59. The difference is we made shots. Like there was a statistic, like I think it was first half, that UCLA was only shooting 25%. And it doesn't really matter how well you pack the paint in. Eventually, if you're only shooting 25%, Carolina's going to win the game. But I think we had to be really efficient, and we had to make all our shots, and we happened to. I mean, even though we were like 5 of 17, we weren't like shooting our best from the three. I thought that Sonano definitely got more points than probably we had expected against the size, because of all the pick and rolls and
I agree.
just really scheming.
And again, she proved that she proved me wrong. I wondered about Monica's ability to deal with that type of length and that type of size and athleticism and shot blocking prowess that South Carolina gives you down low. She did a pretty good job. She didn't force anything, and that's demonstrated just by one stat. She made 6 field goals on just 8 attempts, so she didn't force anything. But you're right. Pick and roll was effective. South Carolina refused to collapse down, which surprised me to an extent. I would think you'd rather take your chances with someone like Gabby Marshall, Kate Martin making threes than just allowing Caitlin Clark to eat you up inside. But man, it's hard to game plan against this team, and it's going to be hard for Kim Mulkey to do so in 36 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that they did the best they possibly could. I mean, I think comparatively speaking, I mean, the way we've been shooting on teams, it's, it was a game where I think you would kind of rather give up the 2 than the 3, and let us get loose, and just try to pressure the ball. But yeah, kind of like what Maryland did, because we were able to draw all of their, like Cardoso, we were able to draw Cardoso and Boston outside the paint. We were just able to have a field day making a bunch of layups just because, we were faster, Yep. So hopefully we can come down from this. And I think we can. I think this team's is a mature team, and they've been really good all year about, not wavering. This team is going to come ready to play. It's not going to be, this reminds me of when the Final Four was held in 2017 in Dallas, when Mississippi State beat UConn, remember? And they ended that 111 game-winning streak, with that Williams. You remember that game, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But what you saw was, like, in the national championship game, Mississippi State was completely flat. Like they just were completely out of gas, and it showed. And I think this Iowa
broadcast tonight.
Yeah, I think this Iowa team will be ready. But yeah, I guess there's probably other callers, so I'll probably get off now. But yeah.
Appreciate it, Michael. Man, call anytime. You're always welcome. Appreciate the time, sir.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, folks. Again, we appreciate everybody being here. It's about midnight here as we've about 4 minutes from turning the calendar to April. A very, very strange day from a weather standpoint, from a sports standpoint. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line, and we've got a special guest with us. Who's that on the line? look at it. What do we got? Don Patterson here, aren't you? Are you lobbying for for Coach Tania Davis's job, Don? Or?
Not at all. I'm not any smarter about basketball now than I was a month ago or a week ago. But I'm just so impressed with our players and our coaches. Just a phenomenal job on both parts. Listen, I had a chance to watch the practices yesterday, at least the practices of LSU, South Carolina, and Iowa. And it was obvious from the practice that South Carolina had issues in shooting from 3, and you could see it coming that we were gonna pack the lane, defend the lane, and dare them to make shots. And except for number 25, nobody could do it.
Let's be honest, 25 couldn't for a long time.
You're right.
She had open opportunity after open opportunity after open opportunity. And she passed up probably a dozen opportunities. she finally made a couple, and you start to think, oh, if she's making some shots and forcing Iowa to abandon the game plan, it changes things. But it was a little bit late for her to start, I think, gaining some confidence and some traction from behind the arc. And I tell you, as I said earlier, Don, if you had told me that Iowa would get out rebounded 49-25 and get killed on the offensive glass, like 26-5, I think was the final, I'd have said there's no chance that Iowa wins this game. I expected Iowa to get out rebounded. I expected Iowa to get out rebounded probably by 15, maybe 20. Again, going back here, they won on turnovers. They certainly shot free throws really well. They shot from the field a lot better. They didn't shoot great from three. I don't know. It's still kind of it's still intriguing when you look at the box score. I would, without looking at the actual score, I would still say that South Carolina probably won this game.
Well, one thing that worked in our favor, correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, we were 14 for 14 on free throws.
Yes.
That's good, because I know that they missed any number of free throws down the stretch, missed more than a few. And of course, those are lost opportunities. Those are points that we didn't have to miss on tonight. Thank God we needed every point we could find. I did have a chance to go to the rally this afternoon, and one of my goals before I went, I wanted to have a chance to visit with Caitlin's dad, and I did. I had a good chance to visit with Brent and with Ann, and I was really pleased to catch up with them, because Lisa had played golf with Brent at the golf outing for women's athletics a year or two ago, and she was really complimentary of him for what a great guy he was. And then on top of that, there's one other parent I wanted to meet, and that was Kate Martin's dad, because Kate Martin's dad is a high school football coach. And I'd heard Kate say at one time, I love football because my dad's a coach. And so I wanted to meet Coach Martin, and did. And in talking with Caitlin's dad, I made a point in telling him, I said, there's no doubt in my mind, if Caitlin were a male, she would have been a quarterback, because she has, you think about it, hitting Monica on a fast break versus a trailing defender is not much different than hitting hitting a tight end over a fence post linebacker, because it requires touch. It requires spatial awareness, and Caitlin's got great spatial awareness. She knows how to loft the ball over a defender to put it into the hands of her teammate, and does so all the time. Of course, I think that was one thing that was significant. Corey, it seemed to me every time they finally made a shot to go ahead of us, we struck back within a matter of 2 or 3 or 4 seconds. Any number of times we were able to get on top of their defense and get some cheap baskets, and thank God we did, because they were hard to come by. So every time they got enthused when they took the lead, we turned right around and took it back from them. I think that was important.
If you looked at the game flow chart, Don, I know this isn't doing South Carolina total justice because the game was close throughout. But if you just look at the game flow chart, Iowa controlled this game from start to finish.
You're right.
I mean, they jumped out on them early. South Carolina pushes back. Iowa jumps on them early in the third. South Carolina pushes back. They go right. I mean, you're right. They responded every time, at least. Really, I think that the 2 big responses were Iowa got up by 9 early, and South Carolina pushed back. And then they got up 9 early in the second half. South Carolina pushed back. I think those were the moments. Those were those pivotal moments that you talk about. And I don't want to just give every bit of credit to Caitlin Clark, but she's so involved with the offense. And Don, can you just talk about her from your perspective? And I know you're not a basketball coach, but you've coached a lot of great athletes. And one that comes to mind when I think of toughness and endurance and stamina and athleticism is a guy like Tim Dwight. Someone with a motor that just doesn't stop, Don.
Corey, you're not going to believe this. I told Lisa, I said, I'd like to go to the rally today, and she wasn't sure that was necessary. So she and her sister were off shopping, which was fine because I still wanted to go to the rally, and they dropped me off, thankfully. And one of the first people I saw when I went into the ballroom, and they always underestimate Iowa fans. I'm sure the fire marshal would have shut the whole thing down if he would have known how many people were in that ballroom. Iowa fans are continually underestimated. One of the first people I saw, I heard someone yelling out Coach P, and You're not going to believe this. It was Tim Dwight. Tim's down here, and I was excited about seeing Tim. I saw no less than 4 or 5 players. I saw Damian Robinson. I saw Bashir Yamini. Who else did I see? Let me think. There are too many to name. I can't remember them all. Kenny Jones, the wide receiver from Duncanville that I recruited years ago. And of course, I recruited those guys as well. I had the privilege of coaching Tim, and you're right. The thing about Tim, the thing about Caitlin, they both paid a price to get where they are, or where they were in Tim's case. And that gives them an opportunity to have a sense of confidence that no one can match. Caitlin wasn't concerned. Who would you rather have at the free throw line at the end of the game than Caitlin? Yep. And sure enough, the ball didn't even think about going out. It went through as clean as a whistle every time in those last few free throws. So it's just so rewarding for me to see all that hard work pay off, because I know ever since Caitlin's a little girl, she's dreamed of playing in the Final Four, and for that matter, winning the national championship. And that's the next step, of course. The cautionary mention I would have for the team: celebrate this one, but not for long, because imagine how you're going to feel if you can't win the next one. So, let's enjoy it for a few minutes or even an hour or two, but then let's turn our attention to LSU, because one of my concerns going forward, Corey, there's no doubt that we used up a ton of energy tonight to beat a great South Carolina team. And even though LSU was tested, it wasn't the same kind of extreme test that we had tonight. So we've got to get off our feet, rest our legs. The coaches have to, I'm sure, get very little sleep the next night or so. And we got to get ready for Sunday, because it's going to feel very hollow without one more win. And that's not meant to scare the players. It's just meant to inspire the players. There's an opportunity in front of you, and you've worked for it. You've earned it. But it still involves one more win. Here's the good news. LSU's good, but they're not as good as the team you just beat. So take that court with great confidence, because you've earned the right to be there, and you've earned the right to be the favorite. And now all of a sudden we are the hunted. But we're only a slight favorite. Let's face it, LSU is very, very good too. But I do like our chances, because our players are as mentally tough as you can be, and our coaching staff. I've always said this, Corey. A coach has a chance for great success, if you've heard me say it, if he's both liked and respected. Is there any doubt in anyone's mind that Lisa Bluter is liked and respected by her players? No doubt whatsoever. And you've heard Caitlin talk about the inner circle. You can't buy your way into that inner circle, because that inner circle is very small. It involves those players and those coaches and no one else. I guess you could argue that the parents of the players maybe are part of that inner circle, but truthfully, when the game's about to tip off, they're not even part of that circle. That's just a very special group. They've all got great trust in each other. That's what's so impressive, is we've got 5 young ladies that have started how many games together now? That is a very cohesive unit. We have more cohesion than LSU does. We had more cohesion tonight than South Carolina too. That's one reason we won the game. You think about it, Corey, very few times did we turn the ball over. Thank God, because they put up so many more shots with all the offensive rebounds. We got killed in the paint. I mentioned to Brent today, I said, I know we're not going to win on rebounding, but if we could just be competitive with rebounds. And we weren't even very competitive, and yet we still won, because we didn't turn the ball over. We did a good job of getting transition buckets, as we discussed. And our best players shot with great confidence and with great efficiency, and thank God she did. And Monica too. Both of them fulfill their roles very, very well all over again. They're going to do it one more time on Sunday, I'm sure.
Don, do you have time for a couple quick calls?
Sure.
I want to keep you on here because I'm enjoying this dialogue. It's always better to have somebody who understands. I mean, I know you're not a basketball coach, but you understand what it takes to win big athletics events at this level. And let me ask you, before we get to our next caller, Don, your perspective. You've been a part of the Iowa program since 1979, right? Is
Yes.
this you've been, I know you're biased because you're a former football coach, and I think back in 1985, people have brought that big Michigan-Iowa game up, and certainly that will always be one of the biggest moments in Iowa athletics history. Where does this rank?
Well, it's right up there with any win in any sport. Because let's face it, the only win that's going to be bigger than the one tonight is the one on Sunday. That one's for all the marbles. That carries even more weight, of course. I was always able to say, Corey, if we have a chance to go to Pasadena, then we're going to make good on that opportunity. Well, this is the basketball. This is better than going to Pasadena, because Pasadena might not allow you to win a national championship.
Right.
You know, when you're playing in the national championship basketball game, that's an opportunity that's really literally once in a lifetime.
All right, let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hi, Corey. It's Ryan.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, man. I'll tell you, what a night.
What a night.
Yeah, it's I'm exactly in where you're at mentally with the team. Your analysis, I pretty much agreed with. I did disagree with one thing that you said, and that's the point that I want to make tonight.
Okay.
And I want to bring that up. And forgive me, I'm just sort of rattled. I wasn't expecting you. I was still listening to Don, so I'm somehow behind you. But anyway, I wanted to say that I think Don hit it best when he said that it's this cohesiveness of this group that has come from playing 90 games together. And very early on in the chat, I put in there that it was the Big Ten Conference and the play that the Hawks had this year in the conference that really prepared them for tonight. And I think that all of Big Ten Nation is wearing black and gold tonight. This was a marquee win for Iowa. Yes, it's a huge win for Iowa athletics, but it's bigger than that. It's a marquee win for the Big Ten. And women's basketball has not fared very well on the big stage in recent years from the Big Ten. I don't think we've had anybody in the national championship game since Maryland, if memory serves me right. And tonight, IU and Maryland were wearing black and gold. And I want to thank them for preparing this team, because that loss at Maryland was the best thing that happened to this team, because they regathered themselves and refocused themselves, and they played a physical Big Ten game tonight, and they came up on top in a game that they should have lost.
So, Ryan, I'm just curious, where did you disagree with me? What did I do that?
Well, I thought that you thought that Stanford and some of the other people would be in the Final Four. I had two Big Ten teams being there. I didn't know which ones it would be. I thought it would either be IU, Purdue, or Iowa in the Final Four this year, because I think the Big Ten is the best women's basketball conference this year.
Yeah, they might be,
And
man. I think that's
I
fair,
really
Ryan.
believe
I mean, I know we read too much into the tournament at times, but they get 3 teams to the Elite Eight, and if we're going to judge the Big Ten men on how they don't perform in the Big Ten tournament or in the NCAA tournament, let's judge the women on the same scale. And yeah, you're right, 3 teams in the Elite Eight, and now you got 1 team with a chance to win a national title. And boy, the conference could use it. I think that's a fair point, Don.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think that's one reason we have had good success. We were not the only good tournament team. We had 3 in the Elite Eight, as you said.
Well, Don, the other thing, too, that you mentioned that I had agreed with was I thought Iowa physically was the better team. The number of fast breaks and their ability to run the floor was phenomenal. And it looked to me like the Carolina girls were actually winded. I saw a couple of them bent over. They were out of breath. And they looked like me out there. And basically the Iowa girls hadn't even broken a sweat. And they were used to this style of running up and down the floor. And I think they really, like Corey said accurately, Carolina would have a run and Iowa would answer. And it was with fast breaks. And shockingly, you didn't think they would be that open and get that many layups. And they did. It was phenomenal. And I really think, just to play in the conference was what did it. I mean, prepared them for the night tonight that they had. And the other thing I wanted to add was just as far as this, conversation, how does this rank as far as wins go? Well, I'm 66, and I'm going to rename my name to Stage 4 because I've been in the hospital 4 times since February 11th, and I haven't called in, but I've been listening, Corey. But I would say the 1970 men's basketball team and their Final Four appearance was like tonight. And Downtown Freddie Brown and Vonnie Lester in 1979, those 2 teams come to mind. And this is like that. This is, where were you when Caitlin Clark and the Iowa team beat South Carolina moment? It's legendary. It's never going to be forgotten. And it's a moment in time that's very, very special. Probably something that'll be very rare for us to ever see again. And right now I'm still in shock too, but it's special. Needless to say.
We appreciate your perspective, Ryan, and I agree with everything you said.
I said, Ryan, Eric put on there, she was going to see it with a cowboy hat. Well, I'm glad you're not wearing it, Don. I'm glad you stayed true to being an Iowa boy. And great you're down in Dallas. And I got to talk my wife into driving down there tomorrow because I think we should be there Sunday. But anyway, I almost went anyway, but I'm limited to 1 car and I can barely walk. So, but I'll probably crawl in there and be there Sunday. We're going to see. So thanks for listening. Go Hawks. And hopefully they can, win the whole enchilada. Let's go get them. So
thank you, Ryan.
Well, you guys have a good night.
Appreciate it, sir. I am thinking, you're not celebrating the right way, Don. Where's the cowboy hat? I know Lisa was against it, but you're in Dallas, right?
I thought that just pertained to football. If we got to Indianapolis, I was going to wear one maybe,
but this is the great state. This is the great state of Texas, Don, and home of the stockyards, and so we'll have to see what we can do on that front. All right, let's get one more call in here before we let Don go. I know Don did not plan on being here long term, so let's get one more call in here before we head out. Let's go to, I believe we have Mr. Well, I won't spoil who it is. Thank you for calling our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Who's on the line?
This is Lemansky Corey. We got Don with us?
We do, Lemansky. Lucky you.
Lemansky, we're finally back together.
I ever had. Go ahead, Don.
What's that?
Oh, I thought you had something to say, Don.
I was just saying it's nice that all 3 of us can be back together again. We were like I was going to say the 3 Stooges, but that wouldn't be appropriate.
Well, oh, Curly and Larry later on. It's really nice to have you on, Don. You've achieved a lot in sports, and I think it's neat that Corey, since he started his podcast, is on tonight to deliver and give Iowa fans a voice. I'm not that surprised about today's game, to be honest about it. Don probably can comment on some magical pairs, and the inside-outside game is magical, and it's almost beyond personnel. It's into chemistry and tactically, especially Don being a tactical person, hard to guard. I go way back, and you can't take away from Freddie Brown on the Seattle Supersonics, but that's an individual comment. You can't take away from Ronnie Lester. That's an individual comment. You can't take away from Chuck Long, running up to the Heisman Trophy, who had his best friend in a bar in Iowa City, and we had a few beverages after he lost. We thought it was so sad. But then Bo Jackson won it, and you kind of understood. This is the greatest basketball moment in men's and women's basketball history since I've been alive. I can't speak for Don Nelson, but one thing that's very understandable is that Christine Grant, when she was athletic director, had a dream for women's athletics, and Don can talk about this when you build something for the student athlete that's beyond winning, but it includes winning. And Christine Grant is one that hired Lisa Bluter. And Lisa used something from, I know Don remembers this, but the Miracle on Ice against the Russians and the speech from Herb Brooks about he's practicing, he's talking about common people together achieving uncommon things. And Bluter had this the last 2 days when she was interviewed. She almost used that exact quote. And she's saying that in the locker room. I think what I can't fathom is how good South Carolina really is. Like, they're a Goliath. That many straight. Don, can you equate anything in football that you remember about David and Goliath and a team that was so great and they came out and beat them?
You're right. Sometimes you see it in not just in basketball, but football too. I've always said a little easier to pull off the monumental upset in football because footballs take funny hops sometimes. Basketballs typically do not. You simply have to be better at putting the ball through the hoop than the other team. And if you're not, you're going to be hard-pressed to win. But tonight, we were able to get that done in part because we did a great job protecting the ball. We have a lot of unsung heroes tonight. One that comes to mind for me is Gabby. I don't even know if Gabby scored tonight, but I do know she played great defense. She had any number of steals during the course of the game, and of course she did a great job of handling the ball. I don't think she took many shots, but that wasn't her role tonight. If they leave her wide open, of course she's going to shoot. They were smart enough not to do that very often.
No, just real quick to answer your question, Gabby took one shot, did 0 points, 0 of 1 from the field, Don, but that is not representative of the impact she made on both ends because of her ability to attract attention on the wing.
Absolutely true. Yeah, everybody did their part. I was concerned, when Monica was out for a length of time, and not just Hannah, but O'Grady came in and did okay. Did okay. We were all hard pressed to defend those bigs for South Carolina because what are they, 6'7" and 6'6"? A couple of them, they're very difficult to play against. And we did the best we could, but I didn't think we'd get hammered on the boards as much as we did. But I honestly now would have to say, Corey, it wasn't because of lack of effort. They were simply that imposing as inside players. And I thought they did really try to bully us around a lot. And I think the officials allowed them to do it. I thought we got the short end of the stick in terms of officiating overall.
I agree.
You probably agree. I think those officials had an idea of who was supposed to win. They always do. Here's the good news. The next group of officials has an idea of who's supposed to win, too. It's the team that just got through beating South Carolina. So maybe we'll get a benefit of doubt from the officials on Sunday.
How bad was the jump ball call at the end of the game?
I'm trying to figure out how can you tie the ball up if you're on the backside of someone and you're reached all the way around them. There's no way to do that without making significant contact with the person's body.
They just. I said this earlier. The officiating, whoever makes those decisions, right? The NCAA council or whatever, rules council, they have to look at how that is officiated, how jump ball and tie-ups are officiated, because it is ridiculous. It just, to me, it slows down the women's game. It monotonizes the women's game, and that was just a bad call in a huge moment in the game that could have been costly had Iowa somehow lost.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I thought we got mugged too many times to count. And the credit of our girls, they didn't complain. You know, there was a time or two where they were very surprised, of course, with the outcome of the call, but you know, they didn't let it affect their play. I'll say it that way. That's what's so important. Even if you get a bad call, you've got to be good enough to put it behind you and move on. I think we did a good job of that tonight.
Anything else, Lemansky?
Well, people mention about the character of the Iowa program, how it's almost character first, and if you can't, especially Don, your tenure, you know, I was on campus. I met George Davis. I met Hap Peterson, briefly Chuck Long. So many players, and I always came away just totally impressed with how they handled themselves in public. And I'm sure Hayden's discipline probably scared the hell out of his assistant coaches at times. But I think that's carried through with the Iowa women's program. And Lisa Bluter mentioned there's an Iowa woman coach on the South Carolina staff, and she was very proud of that, very complimentary of South Carolina. And Lisa Bluter's in tow with all of her assistants. She talked about recruiting Caitlin Clark, and it was a tough recruitment because she was so talented. And she gave so much credit to Jan Jensen to bring her in the fold. And maybe we don't talk enough about those assistant coaches that aren't in front of the microphone all the time, like Coach Patterson, the defense, longtime defensive Brasher for Iowa football. You know, I used to listen to him after football games. He was so fascinating to listen to. And I think that coaching staff and Bluter's attractiveness to her assistant coaches and keeping them, because Caitlin could have gone anywhere. And you go back to how Iowa established their women's programs. This isn't as surprising to me as others because of that history of C. Vivian Stringer, all that recruitment, and the late Christine Grant set the table for this to come at us. And I'm a big history buff. And Corey, I've talked to you about legacy and how we have to honor legacy in Iowa football or any other. And I'm just thrilled for that coaching staff to me, we've already won. The things you want to learn from athletics, and no matter how the game goes to the championship, Corey, remember the narrative I talked about with Iowa football? The narrative nationally on ESPN and the offensive productivity. Look how the women's program just turned that around. And that's invaluable and golden to a university. And I'll hang up and listen to the rest of the show. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you, Lemansky. Appreciate that. Good stuff. And Don, since you won't do it, I will. We're going to do this just for everybody who's been waiting for Don to do it. You refuse to do it, Don. So even though I'm not in Texas and I'm not in the Lone Star State, I'm not at the stockyards, I will hold the baton for this entire show, Don.
Better you than me, Corey. You can pull it off better than I can. I will tell you, though, in Texas, people that are wearing a cowboy hat that are not really cowboys, we have a name for them down here. They're referred to as Rexall Rangers. You know, like the drugstore cowboy.
I'll embrace it tonight, Don. I'll embrace it tonight.
Well, it's just a wonderful moment in time for Iowa fans, and not to mention our basketball program. I'm just so happy for those young ladies because I know how hard they work. And let me say this too. I'm about to lose my power here with my phone, Corey, but there's an expression we always had. Fatigue makes cowards of us all. What you have to do, of course, you have to have superior conditioning so that you simply never wear out. And that's where Caitlin is right now, and not to mention those other starters. They're all capable of giving great effort for all 40 minutes. And that's what is the difference between winning and losing in so many tough situations like the ones we faced tonight.
Coach, appreciate you calling in. We hope to hear from you after national championship win on Sunday.
I'm looking forward to it, and I think we're going to be able to get that done. If you heard Lisa's comments to the team in the locker room, she did say, we are good enough to win the national championship. We are one game away. We're going to be working on that in a few minutes after the celebration tonight, and we're going to get ourselves ready to win one more game on Sunday. We're all looking forward to it, and I have great reason to believe that we're going to find a way to get that done.
Thank you for calling in, Don, and we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you in 36 hours or so.
I look forward to it, Corey. Take care.
Don. Always enjoy Coach Patterson calling into the show, and he enjoyed tonight as much as all of us did. So appreciate him being here. And I'm going to leave the cowboy hat on for the length of the show, if that's okay with everybody else. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call in line. Mr. Ryan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm Buddy Boy.
Oh, no.
That's what you called me last week. Hey.
Yeehaw, Ryan, right? All right. Woo! What you got for me, buddy boy?
Hey, look,
I should have got you like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I had you on hold for a while.
I agree. I would have liked to totally praise Coach Don, but
yep.
I wish I actually had Coach Tanai on here so I could apologize to her.
Okay. You want me to relay a message, Ryan?
Yeah, do that.
What's the message?
The message is my favorite Hawkeye moment was beating Louisville.
Okay.
Are you kidding me? Okay. Tonight is so sweet. Oh, wait. We did win, right?
I think so. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Sure.
You confirmed it. Yeah. Yep. I mean, I had the whole family, and we damn near broke our house going crazy. And I'm going to tell you what, this team is winning the national championship. We can beat LSU, no doubt about it. Even though I literally wake up at 3 a.m. with a nightmare of Kim Mulkey because she's just a scary, horrible individual, I still think we're going to win this game. Kim Mulkey sucks. Ask Brittany Griner. Ask Brittany Griner, that whole situation.
Real quick.
Man, Kim Mulkey's a bad person. But I'll tell you what, Lisa Bluter's a badass. And Caitlin Clark is the best player who has played in any NCAA sports in years.
I can't argue with that, buddy.
Tell me I'm wrong. Yeah, exactly.
I won't. The cowboy hat says you're right.
I wish Coach Don was still on because he would probably break down the X's and O's. But
if I had only kept Don on for one more call.
You knew I was probably next, and you had to,
that's all hearsay, Ryan.
You're awesome. You were so awesome. We did win tonight, right?
Yep. Last I knew.
I know. I'm still pinching myself like every 5 minutes. Look.
Yep. Okay. Ryan, you enjoy your evening, your morning, and you're coming back on Sunday to talk about a national championship, right?
Are you kidding me? I'm gonna hopefully be with, your first 3 or 4 calls.
Okay, I'll try to make that happen on Sunday. I promise.
Love you, Corey, and you look great with a cowboy hat. And My God, these girls are just amazing.
Amen to that, brother.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. All right, that was good. I appreciate Ryan calling in as always. And we need to get to some super chats here. How about Erica with the super chat? If we win the Natty, will Coach P finally wear a cowboy hat? Go Hawks. Well, you got me to wear a cowboy hat with a Final Four win, so I don't know that a Natty will do it for Don. Maybe if the football team wins a national championship, Don will wear a cowboy hat. My guess is I could get him to do that for a national championship. So appreciate you with the super chat, Erica. Let's go back to our call-in line. Who do we have next? I've lost order here. I apologize. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Who's on the line?
Hello.
Hello.
I just wanted to say a few things.
Okay.
Number one, I haven't been this exhausted after a sporting event. It's the 2016 Game 7 of the World Series. And I think that's fitting because I think events like these only come around so often. And they're really, when I think of all the great Hawkeye moments as a sports fan, I think this has to be number one, because number one, you have a team that's played with so much guts today. And on top of that, you have a player that is not only transcending women's basketball, but I think it's transcending sports right now. That's incredibly special. And I don't think we've ever seen that from a Hawkeye team or a Hawkeye athlete before. Maybe you can correct me on that. Maybe Niall Kinnick, I don't know, wasn't around back then. But
I can't argue with that. I mean, I wasn't obviously around when Niall Kinnick was playing football, but I mean, I don't know. Like I said earlier in the show, this is maybe stating the obvious, but there's this debate about who's the best player in women's college basketball. I don't know how you can possibly make that debate. It's not even a fair conversation to have. And that's not anything against Aaliyah Boston. She is fantastic, but Caitlin Clark is a absolute generational talent. And the fact that she grew up right here in the state of Iowa, elected to stay home, and is doing what she's doing. And let's be honest, I know that I don't want to make this into an NIL conversation, but she came into Iowa and is benefiting off her name, image, and likeness at the right time. She's got an opportunity to be here 5 years, which is great. I think it can be great for her, great for the program. And you're right. She's changed the game of women's college basketball.
Right. And it has to be number one for me on the list of, sporting events as a Hawkeye fan. And also, this might be a little controversial to say, but it's refreshing to see a Hawkeye team not shrink from the moment. They just got better. They just showed so much grit and determination and guts. And Caitlin Clark is the best player on the floor, and he's like Steph Curry. She got the shooting ability of a Steph Curry and the unselfishness of a LeBron James. She's truly special. When she was at the free throw line at the end of the game, I knew she was going to make those free throws because she's got that championship DNA in her, and that's very rare to see that as a Hawkeye fan.
And as much as I think we were all convinced of that prior to the first pair of free throws, I had to see the first two go down. And after I saw those first two go down, and maybe you felt the same way, after I saw those first two down, I said that at the second pair of free throws, I thought, and I even said it out loud, she's going to make both of these. And she didn't hesitate. And that takes a special player and special character to be able to go up there and just block everything else out and not hesitate and shoot those free throws like any other free throw. It is something special.
She's got that killer DNA. I mean, it's like if you have Kobe Bryant at the free throw line, he's going to make, or Michael Jordan, or, so yeah, that's her. She's her. She's the real deal. And, she's going to have she's got a great career ahead of her in the WNBA.
I agree. Yep. And it might
she
not
might
be
I don't know. She might be the best player in the WNBA today. I mean, if she was, in the WNBA, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah,
seems like it.
You and I both know this, that when we hear about the NBA and we hear discussions about pro prospects, etc., usually a player is limited by, okay, they can't jump, they're not athletic, they're not great from outside, or they, whatever the case may be. Maybe it's size. Luka Garza, I mean, talk about a generational talent, but he lacks athleticism, and he's been, bobbing back and forth between the G League and the NBA. But I do think the WNBA is different. I think Caitlin Clark is doing something that nobody's ever done. So, the way she plays the game of basketball is so different that she's kind of doing what Steph Curry did for the men's game, 10 years ago.
Right.
And,
and she is, her game, she does have similar characteristics to Steph Curry. Steph Curry's not necessarily going to blow you away, but he is athletic. He is an athlete, and he's deceptively quick. And same with Caitlin Clark. She's a very good athlete. Another great thing about Caitlin is she makes her teammates better. I mean, she's just a great teammate and high basketball IQ. She's the whole package, honestly.
Yeah. No, I agree with all of that. And like I said, I'll admit there were times where I wondered, does this team have the athleticism to make a deep run and to beat a team like South Carolina? I mean, I think we've all done that. We've all compared this Iowa team to what's the most extreme opposite of this Iowa team. It's always South Carolina, because they possess everything Iowa doesn't have. Superb athleticism, superb length, tremendous rebounding prowess, and they've just been the most dominant force in the game. And so this team passed the ultimate test. And I think it's very fair what Coach, I don't think it's a coincidence that Coach Close and Coach Patterson both said the same thing this evening. The thing this team needs to focus on right now is not allowing tonight's game to become the national championship game, because there's still one game left in the schedule. Quick turnaround, and it feels unbelievable, and we're all celebrating as fans. But there's one more game on the schedule, and regardless of what happens in that game, this has been an incredible season, and this is still the biggest game in the history of the biggest win in the history of the program. But that could be a short-lived record if they take care of business Sunday.
But that touches on another point. Coach Lisa Bluter did an amazing job today game planning for South Carolina, and I think she will have them ready for Sunday.
Oh, I do too.
So,
yeah.
Yep. I'm not worried about that. Yeah. Well, that's all I wanted to say. So thank you for letting me on, and let's go Hawks.
Absolutely. Thank you for the call, sir. Appreciate your time.
Yep. That's all I wanted to say.
All right. Again, thank you to everybody who's called in so far. We've got several callers still waiting on hold. If you're on our phone line, or if you're in our queue here on StreamYard, please hang tight. We'll get to your call here. We're an hour and a half in, and no sign of slowing down anytime soon. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. But first, before we do that, I want to take another moment to thank Iowa Smokehouse. If you missed our little plug for them earlier, let's give them another one. Iowa Smokehouse down in Albia. We're thinking about them, too. I know their area was affected by the storms today. Support their products, folks. Celebrate this Iowa win with an order from Iowa Smokehouse. Visit iowasmokehouse.com. Perhaps an order of their meat sticks or their steak bites. You can check out all their products online at iowasmokehouse.com. Tasting is believing with Iowa Smokehouse. And, of course, you can use that code Hawkeye for 15% off your total order. And if you put a $50 order in, you'll get free shipping. So a great deal from Iowa Smokehouse. And, of course, you can't get your shipping order by Sunday if you order it tonight. But head over to your grocery store while you're waiting for your shipment. Get your Iowa Smokehouse from your local grocer. And, again, celebrate the big win and enjoy game day on Sunday. One final game day, regardless of result. We'll get an April Iowa basketball game. How does that sound? I think it sounds fantastic. But again, Iowa Smokehouse, appreciate them sponsoring the show over the past couple of months. All right, let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line as we continue to talk about Iowa's 77-73, their historic 77-73 win over the South Carolina Gamecocks. Let's go to Tom, who's been on hold. Tom, welcome to the show.
Corey, good to see you. Good to talk to you.
Good to see you. Well, I don't see you, but it's good to hear from you, Tom.
Well, I'm just not as pretty as Ryan tonight.
Okay.
So I didn't really think you guys
not
needed
everybody,
to see me on here tonight. You know what I mean?
Tom, not everybody can be as pretty as Ryan.
Yeah. Hey, I got a bunch of stuff wrote down here. First thing I have wrote down, what do you suppose Caitlin's worth now? Her net worth just went up, didn't it?
I saw
Even
some
more?
ridiculous. Yeah, oh, well, of course. But I saw some ridiculous graphic earlier today, and I don't have anything against On3, but did anybody else see this? They have a valuation account on Twitter, and they listed like their top 5 NIL players in the Final Four, and she was like 3rd on the list. And I'm thinking, I don't know how this valuation process works on On3's account, but I think that's bogus. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think I actually have the post here. They list I don't even know how you pronounce their name. Flauj Jackson for LSU as worth $669,000. Angel Reese for LSU listed at $392,000, and Caitlin Clark listed at $192,000. I don't know how that could possibly be the case, given who Caitlin Clark is, and she's got deals with Buick and some of the Nike.
Well, I don't understand. I mean, I thought her high B deal was $1 million, and then the H&R Block deal, her and the South Carolina player, it was $1 million divided between the two of them, and then she's got this Nike deal. I mean, that's what she's got currently. But anyway, that's not really what I want. Anyway, the win was wonderful. And I really thought the first quarter was really a big key because it just kind of set the tone. I thought that Bluter's coaching and scouting, I mean, it was a completely different Iowa game than what we've been seeing. I just thought it was just unreal. Great game. I seen a tweet, and of course you're a little bit older than me, but Caitlin reminds me of Larry Bird, how he took over a game, how he took over college basketball. When she has the ball in her hands, she just has so much control over the game, and you just know she's going to make them big shots. The other thing, where South Carolina, and I assume South Carolina probably thinks they're good, they're damn good, and they didn't play Caitlin like they didn't see near as much double team and 2-player pressure on Caitlin, which gave her more ability to drive and penetrate to get them layups. I've seen that. The question I have here, so where did South Carolina go wrong in this game? Because to me, they got outcoached.
Well, I think a big part of, I think they're going to be looking at turnovers. If you're just looking at the stat sheet, you're going to look at, we turned the ball over 15 times. I don't know what else you look at. I mean, you look at the stat sheet. Yeah. Obviously they limited. Caitlin Clark put up 41, but it took 31 field goal tries. She's 15 to 31 from the field. That's pretty darn good. 3 of 15 from 3 of 17 from 3. I don't know. I don't know what you look at other than turnovers, Tom. Without studying this deeper,
I just, they really didn't do any better job against Caitlin than any other team along in the NCAA tournament. Against Caitlin.
Oh, they didn't.
South Carolina didn't.
Not really.
Yeah.
No, I didn't see much of a difference in I figured it would be a lot more difficult for Caitlin to find her spots. I figured it'd be a lot more difficult for Sonano to get shots off, and it was difficult on Monica because she's dealing with tons of length. But for the most part, they found a way to be effective in spite of the length. And what I really liked about what I saw from Iowa's post players, and this is including Addison O'Grady, I didn't see fear in the eyes of any of those post players. Like they got stuffed a couple times underneath. They just went up. And, sometimes you see men, whether we're talking about the men's or the women's game, you see guys or girls that go in and drive the ball in. And when you see a Zach Edey or a Camila Cardosa, under the rim, all of a sudden you're kind of hesitant and you don't take it up strong. And I thought Iowa did a pretty good job of being assertive down low, and they were ready for the challenge. And I think post players, obviously what we saw from Sonata was big, but when she got into foul trouble, they needed Stolke and O'Grady to fill in. And like I just said, I didn't think Stolke played great. O'Grady didn't play great, but they did what they needed to do, and they fought. And even though if you look at the rebounding totals, it doesn't look great. They battled, and that was enough.
Oh, O'Grady's her minutes were huge when she was in there. I mean, she got a couple of them same Monica looks to the basket. Her and Caitlin, just huge.
Yeah.
So the game starts at 3 on Sunday, right? Somewhere in there, 3:30.
2:30, I believe.
If we get this thing started early, Corey, you might be able to have a 6-8 hour post game show.
Oh.
And keep it all in the same day, not run a 2-day process here.
Well, it's almost
through the night.
It's almost 1:00 in the morning, Tom. We've got the call line is still full. I don't know if I just hope I can make it to Sunday.
Well,
and then we got post game show Monday with Gary.
Yes,
for the men's national championship game.
You got 3. I told my wife you got 3 shows in 4 days. Did you when you said you were going to do an NCAA men's championship post game show? You never dreamed you was going to be doing 2 women's games.
I did not. I did not.
But isn't it a wonderful thing?
It certainly is.
Well, I'm here with you for the night, buddy. So
I appreciate it,
we'll
Tom.
move on. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that call from Tom. I know he's one of our loyal listeners here. Appreciate that. And again, we're rolling along here. The phone line is, I believe, full. No, we actually got one line open. 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. And then we've got Kyle who's going to bring up some receipts. We've got some receipts of some South Carolina fans that I want to get to. Let's go to our next post-game caller here on our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Thank you for calling in. Who's on the line?
Hi, Corey. It's Matt from Knoxville, originally from Marshalltown. Thanks so much for taking my call. First and foremost, what a great win for the team and for the state after such a rough day weather-wise. My biggest point that I wanted to talk about first was, going in that fourth quarter, Iowa's got the lead, and I remember tweeting, Caitlin Clark smelling blood. And I only say that because, I just have this feeling she has that mentality, Ray, of wanting the ball in those moments. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I couldn't help, afterwards thinking, this kind of mentality, I can't help it but think of the greats of my lifetime, like MJ and Tom Brady, Kobe, just all the different kinds that just want the ball in the biggest moments, but all the adversity, find a way to get it done. So I'm telling the people lately, I do not care. Caitlin Clark's the best shooter I've ever seen, and this game elevates her based on her performance against such high odds as the best player in Iowa program history I've ever seen. Just, I don't know what more to say.
I agree with you. And just real quick, if you just take a moment, Matt, to our caller who keeps calling in and then hanging up, I'm trying to put you on hold, but you got to wait on hold. So if you're trying to call in and somebody's on the line, please, I'm going to answer the call and then you're going to, well, they just hung up. So if you call back, I'm going to answer the call, put you on hold, and then you'll be next in line. Anyways, no, I agree with you. And Matt, I don't know how old you are, but I think I would say the same thing. There's nobody anywhere close in my mind that compares to the legend that is going to be Caitlin Clark. I mean, she's already accomplished more than most athletes will ever dream of, most Iowa athletes will ever dream of. She's going to have not only her name hung in the arena and her jersey retired, but she's got an opportunity to be one of the greatest. I don't think this is hyperbole. She's got chance to be one of the greatest women's basketball players of all time. She got a chance.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, back 40-point games in the tournament? Come on. I mean, no one does this. And it's not, they score, they pass, they rebound. no one does this, Corey. No one.
Yeah.
I don't know what more to say about her. But that kind of leads into my next point. I have to shout out again, and they, the other 4 girls, Monica, Gabby, McKenna, and Kate, not in the bench and Coach Bluter, but mainly the 4 other girls. I can't get, as much as I get excited about Kate scoring, I almost get just as excited more for those girls, hitting big shots, just because Caitlin will be the first to admit she can't do it alone. I feel so happy for them just because they work so hard and they know how hard Caitlin works for them. They get as much credit for, how much they rely on Caitlin and trust her to deliver in these big moments. And, I couldn't be more proud for them. And it's funny. I think all 4 of them are from different states too. So it really is such a tight-knit group. And I really believe the reason Iowa was able to pull this off tonight was because of that experience and that trust within each other to get this done. So I think that just doesn't go understated as much in this game.
Yep. I agree with all that, Matt. And, the fact that this team was able to, we keep saying this, but the fact that this team was able to overcome a night where the other shooters didn't shoot the lights out. I mean, you look at Gabby Marshall, 0 points, took 1 3-point shot, missed it. You've got Kate Martin who makes 1 3, McKenna Warnock 1 of 4 from 3, and heck, Caitlin Clark was 5 of 17 from 3. That is the Caitlin Clark effect, and that is the Lisa Bluter effect, that you're able to overcome those types of numbers and beat a powerhouse like South Carolina. So I agree. There's not really any other way to compare, nothing to compare this to, and no one to compare Caitlin Clark to.
Absolutely. One more point before I hang up and let you continue. I remember that really the so-called jump ball call towards the end of the game.
Yep.
And on Boston, Leah Boston may have got it, maybe not. It looked like a pretty rough foul to me. McKenna falls to the floor. She hits her head. I'm thinking, oh, crap. I hope she can stay in the game. But guess what? McKenna Warnock does stay in the game. And who gets essentially, what in my opinion, the game-winning rebound? McKenna Warnock, the future dentist, compared to the future, pro Leah Boston. And I couldn't help but tweet at the time, in that moment, she had more heart than Boston. So, shout out again. Those are the kind of plays and players that win you championships. So, thank you so much, Corey. And let's go ahead and go win a natty on Sunday. Go Hawks.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt. Good stuff. Yeah, I couldn't be happier for McKenna Warnock. She's one person that will not be on this team next year. She is moving on, and good for her. Wouldn't it be great to move out? I mean, what better way to move out than with a national championship? And even if they don't win Sunday, a trip to the national title, that is a once in a lifetime type of thing. And again, we've never seen it. I mean, regardless of how old you are as an Iowa women's basketball fan or Iowa men's basketball fan, you've never seen an Iowa basketball team in a national championship game. Let that sink in for a second. And on Sunday, we're going to see this Iowa basketball team in a championship game. Again, to our caller who called in, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times while our last caller was on hold. Thank you for calling. I tried to answer at least 3 or 4 of those, but you kept hanging up. So don't hang up. If you call in, you got to just be patient. I put you on hold. Then you're in next in line. But the line is open now if you want to call back, and we can talk. Lemansky, thank you for the super chat. Mr. Lemansky, how about them Hawks, Corey? Thank you for the Hyundai there, Lemansky. Thank you for that. Appreciate your support as always, sir. You've been around for a long time and much appreciated it through both football, men's basketball, and women's basketball season. Also, Joseph W. Caitlin, cheat code Clark is she. And she is Caitlin Clark. She is unreal. Wow, I am proud. I am so proud of this team. Unreal. The way Sonano even stepped up. Holy cow, it's great to be a Hawkeye in all caps. And how many exclamation points on this? Boy, Elaine Bennis would be proud, Joseph. She would be proud. let's go to our next caller here in our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Kyle, how you doing, sir?
How we doing, Corey?
I am doing wonderful. You ready to go over these receipts?
Oh man, I got some stuff for you. It's
So
we're gonna have some fun.
So first of all, I've got for anybody who is just joining the show, I asked Kyle to go back and grab some comments from some South Carolina fans. And by the way, I didn't think I was antagonistic at all in my preview of Iowa, South Carolina. I thought I gave a pretty fair assessment. In fact, I later picked South Carolina to win. I picked them by 8.
You were so disrespectful to South Carolina that you gave Iowa a 2 seed a 5 to 10% chance to win the game.
Yeah, I made that comment a couple of times. 5 to, and I've even said tonight. I said if these two teams play 10 times, I think South Carolina probably wins 8 or 9. Yeah. I think that's fair. Like maybe 8 after watching how this game transpired, just to give Iowa some respect. But I think that's the reality of it. So you sent me some of these receipts. So let's see if we can throw a couple of these up here, if you have a minute here, Kyle.
Yeah. My favorite one was the one you responded to, I have to say.
Okay, yeah. So let me see if I can share my screen for everybody. Let's see. Let's start with. I have the right one up here. Here we go. I see part of this is cut off, but I think we can see it nonetheless.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's see if I can zoom in here. There we go. All right. Let's run through some receipts here. Oral Phillips, South Carolina by 20 plus. Iowa's too small. By the way, you used the wrong 2. It's 2 O's, Oral. Too small and non-athletic. Game will be over by the middle of the third quarter. Well, that prediction's about as good as Oral's punctuation practices in this comment. So thank you for that, Oral. And Brian, we missed the end of this, Kyle, but can you pull up the end of that? Can you pull up that comment so we don't? I'll read the first part and you finish us off. Brian says you missed several points. South Carolina has not allowed over 10 threes in a game all year, which is true, by the way. I responded, and you'll read my response, but that is true. They have not allowed over 10 threes in a game all year. Iowa has never seen a defense like South Carolina. South Carolina's first and second team may be the best 10 defenders in the country, period. Maryland was in foul trouble trying to out-rebound South Carolina. Look at where the fouls were called. Sonana will follow suit. She is known for getting in foul trouble. South Carolina will rotate Bree, L.A., and Breezy on Clark. Bree Beal will frustrate Clark. Lastly, stop using the refs as an excuse. You want to finish the rest, Kyle?
Do you think we hired refs for all 36 games we won this year? Just give them some credit.
Okay. So Brian obviously was pretty confident in his viewpoint.
He also, I will point out as well, you responded by pointing out correctly that Arkansas literally just hit 10 threes against South Carolina 3 weeks ago. I never made a claim in the video that Iowa needed to make more than 10. If you're going to rip on a person's take, at least try doing so with factual information. Brian then kindly responded to you and said, "And your reading skills aren't good." So
but see, I don't normally engage people like that. But when you come on, he sounds like a very intelligent person. It's Brian, man. I'm sure he's very intelligent. But you come on there and just it's like people actually take offense to when you discuss a game and don't just completely side with their team.
Yeah.
It's
and I have to say too, I'm the reason why I enjoy those kind of back and forth is because when you said get receipts, I went to the videos, and then the next thing I did was I went to your Twitter replies because I wanted to try and see if I didn't know if you did any of that before the game.
No,
but
I didn't get in. I didn't get in.
You stayed out of it. You stayed out of it. I was surprised. I couldn't. I was trying to find some other stuff to laugh about, but you held yourself back pretty well.
So here is I'll share our next receipt here. This is from Ken K. Ken K. He says, not hating on Iowa. By the way, they shoot the lights out. They're great to watch. But my South Carolina ladies are a different breed, though. THOE.
Interesting spelling there, too. I guess South Carolina elementary schools are not very good.
You said that, not me, Kyle. Let's go back to our receipts. Let's look at okay, here is this is Danny says South Carolina aren't the refs. They got their blank whipped, just like Iowa about to get. Spelled Iowa wrong. Oscar says, go Gamecocks. That's fine. Vernon, Iowa is not David in your analogy, Kyle. First of all, did I ever say that Iowa was David?
I think you were the only person that I heard that didn't use that analogy.
Okay.
Every other person to be fair, every other person that I listened to said that.
So Vernon made sure to give me the all caps. So I made sure to give him the all caps back. I said, okay, David. David Caldwell, or excuse me, Vernon. David Caldwell says South Carolina will beat Iowa by 20 or 30 points this Friday. So appreciate those receipts. And let's see, here's another one.
Our friend the Duke had a couple for you there too, I think.
Yeah, let's go to the Duke. More like the Deuce. Okay, the Duke says we don't get tons of fouls because we know how to defend without fouling. Yes, we can be beat, but by a team that has a defense that can match us, not ranked 300th in the country. So
is Iowa ranked 300 in the country in defense, Corey?
I don't know. I doubt it. I don't think they're ranked that low in defense.
No, and I know they can defend without fouling, but can they get a jump ball without fouling?
Can they get can they get a tie up without fouling? Exactly.
Yeah.
They can if you're the officials. Let's go to Jermaine Smith. He says Maryland was too small, had to foul because they were not able to hit balls.
Hit shots, maybe, or
able to hit balls. Well, it says balls.
I don't know.
That fouls thing is an excuse because South Carolina got called for blank things too, but they were able to adjust and defend without fouling. Okay, well, that's fair. By the way, I never discounted their win over Maryland. I simply said I didn't think that game was officiated fairly, and frankly, I didn't think tonight's game was officiated real fairly. Anyways, I'll have to try to see if I can pull up. There were more interactions.
Yeah.
I think maybe on Twitter that I missed earlier in the week. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyways, it is what it is. I'm not trying to rub it into South Carolina fans, but I'm just always amazed when people take offense when you don't just automatically endorse the team that they watch.
Well, Corey, you don't start the game. If they play the game, you can play the game back, right?
Sometimes I get tired of playing the game, Kyle. Frankly, sometimes I get tired of it after a while.
I have to say I don't do what you do, but I'll never get tired of showing those kind of receipts. Although I will say it's funny. Even when I was looking at that video, I had it playing on 2x speed just to listen to your keys to the game and stuff again. And I have some receipts to play back to you. I want to get your thoughts on some of these.
Okay.
And I'm sure people have already read this back to you, but I missed the first part of the show. Corey says Caitlin Clark won't score 40 or 30. She'll get her 20 to 25. Yeah. I'd say she got her 40, didn't she?
She got her 40. It took 31 shots. If you had asked me how many shots she'd get up, I would have probably said under 25, but no, there's no taking away from the fact that she was able to score this many points. I'm sure this is the most, well, I guarantee you, it's the most points South Carolina's given up in years to any one player. I mean, no question about it. How many players in the world of women's college basketball or college basketball in general are putting up 40 anyways?
No one. No one in college. No one in college systems. I mean, in the NBA, when they let them kind of do their thing, and they're not as scripted. But in college, the coaches run the system so much that it's really impossible to score 40 on a regular basis.
Yep.
But it was so funny. I was flashing back throughout the game to because I watch a lot of NBA basketball. I don't watch as much college as I do NBA. I watch Iowa games, but outside of Iowa, I don't really watch a whole lot of basketball. We got another friend hanging up, don't we?
Yeah.
If I was
going to call in, I said this 3 times now. If you're going to call in, wait on the line. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. But I was kind of flashing back because I remember listening to some of those older NBA finals in 2015, 2016. I remember watching like Steph for the first time when he kind of broke out, and they would track stats of like his average speed, and he was like the most traveled player on the court. They said he would run like 3-4 miles a game, and Matthew Dellavedova ended up in the hospital with an IV because he had to chase Steph Curry wing to wing all series long. But that was the vibe that I got. But even like just some of those, some of the keys to the game, like your 3 keys were don't get killed on rebounds, which they got murdered.
They did.
They got absolutely murdered. Hit 10 threes and limit South Carolina's. They weren't particularly hot from 3, and they did win the turnover battle. But it brought me back to, I know I'm sure I'll get some more comments, but I'm sure people are sick of me bringing up golf. But we have a statistical system that we use, and there's this guy that does a lot of videos about golf and like success and stuff like that, how to get better. And one of the events that he likes to cover is the 2008 U.S. Open, where Tiger Woods had the double stress fracture in his like fibia and his tibia, and had the partially torn ACL and needed his knee rebuilded. And one comment that he made in one of those videos that I thought was really funny and kind of applied to tonight, he said that because Tiger hit it all over the place that week, like his driver was all over the place. He made a couple like 60, 70 footers and pitched in a couple of times. And he said logic doesn't apply sometimes when you're making history. And I that quote just kept coming back to mind tonight, because it just felt like, man, we shouldn't, like, looking at the team stats, we shouldn't be in this game. We shouldn't be, there's no way a team can get out rebounded by 24 they got out rebounded by. They had 3 starters play more than 37 minutes. They allowed South Carolina to take 20 more shots than they did. They shot 30% from 3. Like, there was no reason for them to statistically.
And this is why we keep praising Caitlin Clark, because everything you just said is true. And Kyle, you saw what happened. Caitlin Clark leaves the game for like 30 seconds, and Iowa's offense turns the ball over. I felt bad for Molly Davis. I know her minutes have been cut down as time has went by. But they are so, like, she is not only the best player in college basketball, she's the most important, and it's not even close. She goes down, it's over. It is completely over.
They lose that game by 40 if she goes down.
I agree. And it's no disrespect, but those other players, they obviously have to have a certain skill set that complements her, but what she does it's kind of like we make a comparison to Tom Brady. How many receivers did Tom Brady made to look really, really good? Yes. I think Caitlin Clark has that effect on people around her.
Yeah, no, she definitely does. I know I would say like Susano is a great player in her own right. But the rest of them, like Caitlin sets the table. And I would love to know another like stat they track in the NBA very closely is like usage percentage. I would love to know what Caitlin's usage percentage was for that game, because it felt like it was like 50-60%.
Yeah.
Like it felt like it was hot potato. Like Caitlin passes us the ball and we pass it right back.
Kyle, at late in the game, I don't know what you were saying. I know I was saying, again, verbally, I said several times, got to get the ball to Caitlin here. She's got to get the ball back. And last 2 minutes of the game, she gives up the ball. And okay, let's get it back to her. Let's go. Let's get it back to her. I don't often say that. And I watch Luka Doncic play a lot of basketball. And there are times when I feel like maybe, share the ball a little bit. And that's not, again, I'm not saying that Caitlin Clark is better than the Luka Doncic. That's not my point. But just given the team, how important she is to this team, it will be if she's able to lead this team to a national title, and we'll find out Sunday afternoon, she's able to do that, it will be one of the greatest individual performances, feats in college sports history. I'm not saying it's the greatest, but it will be one of the greatest, and obviously one of the great team achievements. But individually, what she has done for this team to lead them to the promised land is almost unheard of.
I mean, the other thing, too, that I looked up after the game because I was curious was the points record for the NCAA tournament for men's and women's. So the most points ever scored in an NCAA tournament was by Glenn Rice, and he scored 184 points in a tournament. And Caitlin Clark's at 161 right now. So if she scores 24 points, she'll hold that record by herself. Like, that is most points in an NCAA tournament run. That is an incredibly significant record to hold, especially, I mean, it kind of is prerequisite that you have to take your team to the Final Four / NCAA championship to get that record, just to have enough games. But, like, that just shows you, like, man, like the number of people that have gotten hot in March and had those runs, like, and she'd be at the top of that list.
I do want to give real quickly. I want to give a shout out to a couple of super chats if you don't mind, Kyle, because
Yeah,
I'm
go
behind
for
on
it.
them. Kelly says, anyone want a road trip to Texas? About a 12-hour drive, I believe, from Ames, but it's a fairly straight shot. I did the drive in a day, so somebody could hop in their car tomorrow morning and be down in Dallas tomorrow evening. It's again a long drive. Stop at a couple Brahms along the way, and you're there in no time, and maybe jump in a hot tub and be ready for the morning. So appreciate the super chat from Kelly, and then also Bill. Bluter outcoached Staley today. I think that's fair. I mean, again, the stats wouldn't necessarily say that, but yeah, I think you made a good point earlier, Kyle. Overcoming the stats. How do you do that? Little things, and sometimes those little things are. I think oftentimes those little things are things that your team is taught by means of your coaching staff and
Yeah.
basic principles. And Caitlin, post game, kept talking about fight, and I know we use those terms loosely, like, well, this team wanted it more, or this team, they just fought, and we just, we played as the underdog. Well, I think sometimes in cases like, I think that's overused, but in cases like this, yeah, I mean, there were just moments in this game where Iowa just said, hey, we're winning this game, regardless of what the stats say. And, the little plays like the McKenna Warnock rebound, they struggled to get rebounds all game. But when they needed a rebound there at the end, they get one. And they got another one late. I don't know who it was on the other side. So anyways, they overcame a lot to get to. And again, I think they overcame mediocre officiating at best.
Yeah. I mean, for Caitlin, I love the comment too that Coach Don made about fatigue making cowards out of everybody. Like, you could just tell. I mean, the energy she had in the first half was unbelievable. The second half, you could tell she was running on fumes, but it was all willpower at that point. I mean, it's a combination of a mind of steel, obviously, and incredible work ethic throughout the offseason, because there's you can't fake cardio. That's one thing in sports that you cannot fake. You've either done the work to get it or you haven't. And at a certain point that gets exposed, and hers was tested and she passed that test.
And I would be curious to know, you talked about like sports science, right? I don't even know if sports science is still around, but they used to do that type of. I would be curious to know how much Caitlin Clark ran around today.
I bet 4 miles, 5 miles.
And you're right about cardio. Like, we can talk about her lack of athleticism. I don't know, man. I think it's. I don't know how you rate athleticism. I think you're quite the athlete if you can not only do everything she does, but have the endurance and the grit, and I think that's more than just work ethic. I think that's a testament to how you've built your body and the work you've put in physically. I think that's you have to give the physical side of this a look.
Yeah, and the temptation when you're a player as great as her, shooting the basketball as well in practice is, I mean, the temptation for her would be to put up 500 shots a day and neglect that part of her game. But she knows how important that is, and especially when she did start to get more tired, like her shooting, I thought she lost her legs a little bit on her jump shot, but like her drives to the basket, I mean, that's what Jordan used to say when he got older and he struggled with his energy towards the end of his career when he was like in his last years with the Bulls. And he used to say, like, second night of a back-to-back, I would slide down to the post. I would drive more. I wouldn't shoot as many threes. I wouldn't shoot as many long twos, because those are just tough shots. And I think she recognized that in the second half, and she was still driving with a vengeance.
I didn't think she lost a step. I think you're probably right. A couple shots came up short, but again,
I don't think she lost a step on her driving, like on her speed or anything. I just think there were a couple times she didn't get up high enough with her legs on her jump shot, but that was it. It didn't really show up besides that.
One thing we haven't talked about, and I think it's one of those underrated aspects of what Lisa Bluter does, and something that Luca Garza was generationally good at, and that is understanding angles. And I'm not just talking about angles in the post, and obviously footwork and positioning and sealing and being able to maintain position is important, but I'm even talking when you're curling off a pick, or you're rolling to the basket. Like, there are certain things like angles are that angles are important in football too.
Angles on her pocket passes. I mean, some of her bounce passes are just
on
like
Caitlin's part and on Monica Sonano's part.
Yes. Yeah. Monica understands how to get in the right spots, and Caitlin knows how to hit the tiniest of windows to get her that basketball where she needs it. And obviously they've started so many games together that, Caitlin knows where Monica likes the ball. I mean, certain players like the ball lower, higher, left, right, whatever. She obviously knows where Monica likes the ball and where she's comfortable and in rhythm when she catches it. And I mean, that partnership, the fact that I don't know if they mentioned the dribble stat tonight. I know she had like one dribble the whole tournament before tonight. Did they mention that tonight? I don't know.
I didn't catch that tonight. I'm sure she had more than one dribble. Like I said, I'm impressed with what Addison O'Grady and Hannah Stolke were able to do when Monica went down with fouls. However, we talked about how important Caitlin is and how crucial she is for this team. Monica is close to being that as well. There's
Absolutely.
a big. This is not a knock on Addison O'Grady, but there's a big drop off from Monica Sonano to Addison O'Grady right now.
Yeah.
There's
You could see that on a couple of times when O'Grady caught a couple of those post passes and turned and saw one of those South Carolina bigs and just didn't really throw it up with conviction, didn't really know what to do with it instinctually. Monica, I thought, made some really tough finishes tonight comparatively to some of her previous games too. Even like she made some finishes that I was surprised even for her that she finished.
And Monica Sonano is another that's not going to be back next year. So if we can send out Monica Sonano and McKenna Warnock out on a national championship note, I don't know what better send off you could dream of.
Very deserving too. There'll be a lot of faith placed in Hannah Stolke next year. That's for sure.
Team's going to look different, and I would guess. I mean, they got to get somebody's got to develop, whether it's Ediger or it's Goodman or it's O'Grady. Like I feel the same way I feel about the men. Like you can't have all three of those gals. I mean, like someone's going to play, and Addison O'Grady plays, but you can't have the other two just riding the bench. And I know Sharon Goodman's coming off an injury. Somebody else has got to step up, and they're going to look different if nobody else does. I mean, I don't know if Lisa would prefer to go 4-5 with Stolke and a true big, or just run Stolke at the 5 and play different and then bring a big off the bench. Regardless, though, they need to get more production. They need to get production as someone. And I've said this before, I think someone will enter the transfer portal. They've done a pretty good job with retention, but they've also lost players here and there. Tomi Taiwo left, Logan Cook left. So it will be interesting to see. But as far as Sunday is concerned, I'll say the same thing. I mean, I'll probably publish a preview tomorrow. But Kyle, I'd say the same thing I said prior to this game. In addition to the little intricacies in the stats that I think play into matchups, Caitlin Clark's got to stay healthy and out of foul trouble. And Monica Sonano, I mean, they won with her in foul trouble today. But again, there's a drop off, and their best chance, obviously, knock on wood, is with both of those two gals on the floor at the same time. Yeah. And one thing I thought was a little bit overdone by ESPN, they kept talking about how Aaliyah Boston, had been hampered by foul trouble. She had 2 fouls early, and then she had 3 in the third. And I'm thinking, okay, well, Sonano had 2 in the second. She had 3 in the third.
She still got 18.
She still had 18, and guess what? It's a difference with either A, how a player deals with their own foul trouble, or B, how the coach decides to manage the player's foul trouble.
Yeah.
Staley decided to put Boston on the bench for 12 straight minutes or whatever it was. That's her problem.
I could tell you, if Caitlin Clark got 2 fouls in the first quarter, she was not coming out for 12 minutes because she'd come back in the game and they'd be down 20.
Well, and Sonano didn't.
Yeah, she didn't either.
Like I said,
it's a trust in the players to not get another foul, and then discipline on the players' part to actually not get the foul. And I'll be honest too, like there were a couple times, especially in the first quarter, like right at the beginning of the game, where Clark drove in fast break and blue pass or semi-transition, and Aaliyah Boston kind of hacked her on the way by, and she fell to the floor. There were 2 or 3 of those that I thought Aaliyah Boston was lucky not to pick up another foul. There were a couple times that even before the other 2 fouls, like when she had no fouls, that I thought, man, those could have been game-changing fouls, even more so.
Kyle, did you see Fran? in the audience?
I saw pictures of him on Twitter. I didn't see him on the.
They showed him on ESPN, like
Yeah.
not intentionally, but they flashed
Yeah.
over to the section, and you could see, you could see the hair parted, and anyways, you could tell it was him. But I mean, I'm not surprised that he was down there, but
I heard that Connor and Patrick were on their feet for like over half the game, yelling, like they were just constantly like on their feet yelling. So I thought that was funny.
Anything else, Kyle?
Well, the only other thing I was thinking about that I thought might be interesting to run by you is is where it could, like, both for my lifetime and your lifetime and for history, like, because to me, after this game, Caitlin Clark's undoubtedly like on the Iowa Athletic Mount Rushmore. Would you put her there? And if so, who would you put her there with?
Just Iowa athletes all
Ever.
time.
Your 4 favorite.
I'm not a great historian. I mean, obviously Dan Gable is going to be on there. So what do we got? 4 people? Is that the number of people?
Yeah, four.
So Caitlin, Dan Gable. I would probably have to go either Ronnie Harmon or Luca Garza. Probably. And then Niall Kinnick. I mean, who am I missing? Duke Slater would be in the conversation.
I had Gable, Spencer Lee, and Niall Kinnick up there with Caitlin Clark, and then if you want to take out Kinnick for my lifetime and Gable, then I had definitely Luca would be the next on mine. I love the way Luca played. I think in a very different way, Luca had the same like kind of engine that Caitlin Clark has. I mean, Luca Garza was nonstop all the time.
Yeah, I agree. And I remember saying this when Luca was here, Kyle. I remember saying, I've never seen a player dominate like this.
Yeah.
I mean, he did. He dominated in a different way.
Yeah.
But there were games where he could not be stopped. And it was just, it is weird. Like, we've had such a weird period of time. Here's what's great about this, Kyle. It's fair to say, and I know Connor McCaffrey was getting into it with fans on Twitter this week because fans like to compare the men's team to the women's team, and he didn't like that. And I understand why he would be a little defensive because his team has not been able to win in this tournament. And whether you like it or not, those comparisons are going to be made. But here's the deal. We have looked back at recent history and said, Luca was great. Keegan Murray was great. Chris Murray was great. We had Luca for a couple of years. We had Keegan for a couple of years. We had Chris for a couple of years. And what do we have to show for it? We got a Big Ten tournament championship. Great.
Yeah.
But not certainly not a Final Four, not an Elite Eight, not even a Sweet 16. I mean, I look at that and I say that's a pretty big downer.
Mm-hmm.
So for the fact of the matter, the fact that they were able, this women's team was able to, with Sonano and Clark, able to do what they've done this year and take advantage of it. Huge for the fan base, huge for the athletic department. And we won't ever, I mean, if they lose a Sunday, there's a chance that 5 years down the road, we say, never won a national championship with Caitlin Clark. But we'll never be able to say never made a national championship, never made a Final Four, never made an Elite Eight, never made a Sweet 16. That has been written. And that's,
and they'll raise a banner for the Final Four regardless, right?
Oh, and as they should.
Yeah. That's I mean, and this, I think I said this to you last week. Like, to me, it felt like this was like the big step up in legacy for this tournament. Like, if making the Final Four was one thing, then I think beating South Carolina was another big step. And then obviously winning a national championship would be another step on top of that. But this game was, it felt like borderline surreal the longer it went on. I mean, and the other funny thing too, that I saw in the just looking through the ESPN Gamecast, South Carolina led for like 2 minutes and 5 seconds in this game. Iowa led for over 37 minutes. Like that blew my mind. Like they almost shut them. Like they almost beat them wire to wire.
Yeah. Like I said, Don earlier, I wouldn't call it a dominating win, but it was, it was controlled. They controlled the game throughout. And every time that, we've said this several times, every time that South Carolina made a push, Iowa responded every time.
Yeah.
And that's what winning teams do. That's what teams that are geared to win championships are able to do. They're able to sustain runs. They don't stop runs from happening. Runs are going to happen at times.
Yeah.
But you limit the damage and you respond when you need to. and it's usually on the shoulders of a great player, and Iowa's got one.
They sure do. There's no doubt about that.
All right, Kyle, we will we'll plan on we'll see what reaction we get from Kim Mulkey fans tomorrow when I release my LSU Iowa preview, and look forward to hopefully celebrating. Boy, this celebration was fun. Sunday should be even better.
Oh yeah, I'll let you enjoy that and enjoy arguing with some of our elders that we will respectfully defer to about our omission of Chuck Long from our lists.
Somebody actually arguing that Chuck would be that's
and
fair.
And Brad Banks as well came up, I think.
Yeah, nah, I couldn't. Yeah, you see, they both were Heisman finalists. I understand that.
Yeah.
But now Kinnick was a Heisman winner. Okay.
Yeah.
Duke Slater changed Iowa football, and we're going to go down that road as to how he did that. I think if you research Duke Slater, you can figure out how influential he was in the sport and on the university and Iowa athletics. We're talking about potentially the top 4 all-time athletes. I mean, we could come up with a huge list, but Caitlin Clark, I guess the Luka Garza one could be argued, right?
Yeah,
Luka
I
Garza
think he's
or
probably
Chuck
the
Long?
most fragile one on there. I think there's no way you could probably make an argument for like Luka over Spencer Lee, just with Spencer Lee's decorated career. But
Spencer Lee. So I didn't bring him up. That's probably unfair to Spencer Lee. Yeah, probably.
It's a good barbershop talk.
You put two wrestlers on.
I mean, I think with the number of wrestling national championships, I loosely know about wrestling. I'm not like a huge wrestling fan, but
yeah,
I think you have to, but I don't know. Fun talk.
All right, Kyle, we'll talk to you Sunday.
Hopefully as national champions.
Sounds good, sir. Thank you.
Have a good.
All right. Enjoyed our conversation with Kyle as always. And just seeing some comments here in the chat that I missed. Takoon says Lisa may need to go to the portal for a big. Would not be surprised. We'll have to see what happens with that. And Christopher, yes, we know Dan Gable wasn't an Iowa athlete. Okay. So he asked me who would I put on my Mount Rushmore for, I believe he said Iowa athletics. So Dan Gable would be on the mountain if we're just talking about figures in Iowa athletics history. For that matter, I think you could have the conversation that Hayden Fry and Kirk Ferentz could be in the conversation, but they're by no means on, in my opinion, they're not on the Mount Rushmore of Iowa athletics. Now, if we're just limiting it to athletes, to Iowa athletes, we can have a different conversation. But yeah, I think that conversation is a good one to have. And Caitlin Clark has changed that conversation. I think we can all agree on that. Okay, let's go. I believe we have a caller here who's been waiting on hold. Let's see what we got here. All right, let's go back to our phone lines. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line? See what we've got. Hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I don't have a lot to say. I just want to say that I think the defensive strategy tonight was a big part of it. Not trying to take away from Caitlin Clark, but we essentially challenged them to say, "Oh, you're going to play 70s style basketball? Do it."
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And as we said earlier, this is a South Carolina team that's not great from behind the arc. They're great at a lot of things. They can score with the best of them. They're obviously elite defensively, elite on the glass. But I think Lisa Bluter did the smart thing, and they said, okay, what's the weak point of this team? If there is one, we're going to make them beat us with their weakest facet of their game, and that's probably shooting the basketball. And they also scouted this team really well. They targeted people like Raven Johnson, who ended up making a couple, but you're right. They understood the assignment and they executed the game plan, and it was a good one.
Yeah, once again, like I just felt like nobody was talking about how good the coaching staff did tonight.
Yeah.
That's
No,
all
no,
I wanted to say.
That's fair. Yeah, and I it's not just Lisa Bluter, but it's that whole staff. And I know everybody gives Jan Jensen all the credit, but that whole staff, they're all a part. I mean, she'd be the first one to tell you that whole staff is a part of scouting and a part of just prep, and they're going to have their hands full here in the next day because they got a short turnaround before the national championship. But if people didn't have confidence in Lisa Bluter and company before tonight, this win tonight is should inspire confidence in the naysayers, because I agree with you. I thought she coached Dawn Staley.
The game plan they put out tonight should scare LSU's coaching staff, in my opinion.
Well, certainly they know they have their hands full, and Iowa does too. I mean, Angel Reese is really good, really athletic. They're familiar with her. I believe she transferred from Maryland. Of course, I was familiar with Kim Mulkey, go back to 2019 in the tournament. So, no, it should be a fun one. But I saw somebody sent me a DM that Iowa's 1.5 point favorite so far. So,
yeah, that seems about right. Like, it's a toss-up, in my opinion. LSU is a really tough team, so.
Absolutely.
But I as an Iowa fan, I don't know. Like, I've never seen greatness like Caitlin Clark, so I don't know how to quantify what she can bring. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I agree. That's why I said I don't think you can compare her to anybody, because I don't think there has been anybody like her in the history of Iowa athletics, really. I mean, there have been great ones, no question about it. Niall Kinnick is one, but man, I mean, we're comparing Caitlin Clark to Niall Kinnick. There's never been anybody like her in the women's game. And I think several years ago we would have said there's never been Megan Gustafson might have been the best player in the history of Iowa women's basketball. With all due respect to Megan, that's no longer the case, and that argument cannot be made. Caitlin has changed the program, and she's changed the sport.
Agreed. And I think a guy earlier on your show said, like, he doesn't remember somebody other than Taurasi. And I was like, yeah, that's probably true. And I also wonder, when I think about Caitlin, that girl from UConn that's just had injury troubles, that was her, like, when they were freshmen, they were really good together. What's her name?
Paige Beckers.
I just wonder, like, what would the sport women's college basketball be if she was still doing that? Like, was still able to be herself?
Yeah. It's been unfortunate. She's dealt with injuries, and it's been a great. I mean, go back to Sabrina Ionescu at Oregon. There's been a lot of really good women's basketball players in the sport here in recent years. Caitlin Clark at the forefront of that. Paige Beckers, Aaliyah Boston, Ionescu, Megan Gustafson. So, you're right. The sport has been left in a better place, regardless of who you want to give all the credit to. But for this era, these last few years, the sport has been left in a better place, regardless of what happens. I don't know what the final ratings would say for this evening. My guess is it's probably the highest rated women's basketball game ever in the history of tracking those ratings.
I would guess that too.
But yeah, I had UConn in my national title game, I believe. I had to go back and look. But her and Paige, Caitlin and Paige are special talents.
But she just couldn't stay on the court. That's the worst part. It's like, you hate to see, like, I love Caitlin and I love, like, good sports, but you just hate to see her not be able to compete. Does that make sense?
Yep, I agree. I understand. Yep.
All right, man. I appreciate the phone call.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you calling in. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Appreciate our caller calling in to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line, and our phone line is open, 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601. Lemansky, where's the horse, Corey? Thank you for the super chat, Lemansky. The horse is in the stable. I am in my chair, and we'll we'll leave it there. Thank you for the super chat. Erica with the super chat as well. If we win the Natty, will Coach P finally wear a cowboy hat and go Hawks? Maybe I read that earlier, but I'll give you another shout out, Erica. Thank you for being here. I know you were not an Iowa women's basketball fan prior to this run, but we appreciate you jumping on the bandwagon with us. And being a part of this. So thank you, Erica. James, I wonder how long it will be before the bars run out of Busch Light down in Dallas. Hopefully Hawkeye fans are drinking something a little bit better than Busch Light. Anyways, let's get to our next caller. Nicholas is on the line. Nicholas, welcome to the show. Hello, Nicholas, are you with us? I hear silence. It says Nicholas is unmuted. I can't hear you, Nicholas, if you're talking.
Can you hear me, Corey?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right. What a great win for the Hawkeyes tonight. First of all, I just want to thank you for everything you do for the Hawkeye community. I've been listening to you and Don Patterson all throughout the college football season, and I just want to thank you for all you do for the Hawkeye community.
Well, I appreciate that, Nicholas. And I also, let me throw this up here. I appreciate your profile picture because you're sporting a cowboy hat just like I am. So I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. So I'm coming in late, but what's with the cowboy hat tonight?
Cowboy hat is because we had Coach Patterson on early. I don't know if you missed Coach. Did you miss Coach Patterson earlier today?
I think I did miss Coach Patterson.
Okay, you'll have to go back. He joined us. He gave his take because he's a big Iowa women's basketball fan too. So he joined us for probably 20, 30 minutes. And we had some fans that wanted him to put on a cowboy hat. And I thought, hey, Iowa just won a Final Four game in Dallas. Women were at the Stockyards here, yesterday? So I figured I'd throw on the old cowboy hat and wear it the rest of the show. If they win on Sunday, I'll be wearing it as well.
No, it looks great on you. And this is the first Final Four since, 1993?
First Final Four, yeah, the only night other than 1993, the only Final Four for this women's team and the first trip to a national title game.
And you know what? I'm a big men's basketball fan, and I appreciate all the coverage you do for that. But Caitlin Clark, I kind of watched her throughout the year, but all the headlines and that she's got through the past couple weeks, it's just been insane for even women's basketball in general, how much she's promoted the sport.
I agree. Yeah, that's why part of the reason why I think it will be in her best interest to stay in school for 5 years, because she's doing great things for the sport, which will also make her a lot of money. And I think probably more money than she would make playing professional basketball. Women's college basketball is a bigger commodity than the WNBA, and I don't think it's really close.
I agree.
And now that players can make money off their name, image, and likeness, and with her influence not only statewide but nationwide and internationally, earthwide, I totally agree. I'm so happy for her that she's able to be here, do what she's doing at this time in history where players can make that extra dollar. I know it's not all about money, but it gives us a chance to watch her potentially for 5 years, and it just makes the whole situation ideal.
Now, I know she signed that contract with Nike, but do you think, regardless of what happens Sunday, do you think she'll stay for another year?
It's a great question. I think she will. That'd be my guess right now. I just don't. Wow. She's got an opportunity to be here for 5 years. Like I said, I don't know what she's making NIL wise. My guess is it's in the seven. I'm guessing it's seven figures.
Oh, easily, especially with Nike. That's easily seven figures.
If she's making seven figures a year as an Iowa Hawkeye, and she's still got the prospect of being a pro and playing in the WNBA and then playing overseas part of the time if she wants to, why not stay at Iowa, play in front of her family for 5 full years, and have a huge influence on the game? And not that she can't be influential on the game as a professional basketball player, but I do think she's changing the sport as a college player. And that's what makes this situation special.
And like a lot of my buddies, we're big college basketball fans for men's, and we're all sitting there tonight watching the women's. Like, I haven't watched a women's college basketball game in probably since UConn when they went undefeated. And this is like watching them beat South Carolina. It was just great thing for the Hawkeye State and great thing for the Hawkeye program in general.
Couldn't agree with you more. And I felt the same way as I'm sitting there watching this game tonight. And I've been invested all year. I've watched basically every game. But as I'm watching this game tonight, yeah, I feel the same. I think you and I are on the same page. I have not been more involved or invested or whatever you want to call it about a Iowa women's basketball game in my life, and that's normal. I mean, this is a Final Four game, but a lot of that is because of Caitlin Clark, and I just the personalities on this team. That's one thing we haven't talked about, Nicholas, but like it's just such a unique roster, and a roster with a lot of potential moving forward with people like Hannah Stulke, but also a very, very experienced roster. They've played together for so long, and they've got, like I said, a generational talent in Caitlin Clark. Probably the best. She is the best women's basketball player in the history of the program, and she'll probably always be that. It's hard to imagine somebody coming along and somehow dethroning her of that.
And thank God. I mean, I know there should have been any question or doubt that she got the national player there this year. But last year, I do think she got snubbed a little bit of it, but that can be debatable. But what do you feel about like the defense that Iowa played against South Carolina today? I know like South Carolina is still out rebounding them, and I know you said the keys to the game would be for Iowa at least make 10 3-pointers, which I'm pretty sure they did that. But what do you think going on to LSU? How do you think against LSU, what do you think is the keys to the game? I know this is moving forward. I know we have a successful night tonight, and we should just celebrate tonight. But I know moving forward against LSU, what do you think defensively is the strategy against them?
It's a good question. I am gonna have to look back at some more LSU tape here before I publish my preview here on Saturday, because LSU's long. They're not long and physical like a South Carolina. I do think that that's a team that if Iowa wants to get into a track meet with, they'll get into a track meet. They're more willing to do that than South Carolina is. I mean, what Iowa did today was pretty simple. We've talked about it. You pack the paint, and the people that you've identified on the scouting report as below average shooters, you say, okay, we're going to pack the paint and force you to beat us. And if you beat us, fine. If you don't, we think we have a chance.
And
exactly what happened. For the most part, they didn't beat Iowa, although Raven Johnson hit a couple in that second half. I think hit 3 in the second half. So I don't know how they'll attack LSU. Their best defense is obviously switching in and out of the box and one in the zone that Lisa likes to run. I don't know how much man they're going to play. They played a little bit more tonight than one would expect. But again, when I'd have to, I'm not a coach. When you look at how they're playing, it's almost hard for me to without going back and looking to differentiate between, okay, when were they in a matchup zone? When were they in a true man-to-man defense? And again, they were constantly throwing extra people down at Cardoso and at Boston. So I don't know. I after what I saw tonight, and they had several days to prepare, shorter prep time for LSU. I have some degree of confidence that Iowa is going to have a pretty solid game plan. And again, they've coached against Kim Mulkey teams before. I know it was different when in 2019, different team, but they have these opponents are not totally foreign to one another.
Yeah, and I know tonight they're just. I mean, I know that packed the zone or packed the box, and they're just kind of letting South Carolina be out in paint or out in the 3-point line. I know they weren't making them, but they weren't even really trying to shoot those open shots. I know they kind of spread it out a little bit, but I was surprised that South Carolina didn't try to shoot some of those open threes. I mean, they had a lot of chances tonight. I know they weren't shooting too well, but
when you start leaving people open that much, I think there was a couple times that Raven Johnson burned them for it, but I think overall that if you're not tough mentally, that can damage your psyche quickly. If a team has that much disrespect or has that much lack of a respect for your outside shot, that can play into your mind.
And like, I haven't watched LSU too much this year. I know I watched them against Virginia Tech tonight, and I thought Virginia Tech had in the bag. I mean, they were up by a lot going. Was in the third. They're up by like 9 or 10, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't watching the game too closely, but I know LSU made a great comeback at the end, and they held Virginia Tech to was like 11 or 15 points in the fourth. I mean, good for them. They're hitting shots, but I mean, I'm just wondering if Iowa can actually go all the way. I mean, I know we've had, I don't know if I would call it disappointments with the men's basketball team in the past. I mean, I know a lot of it's relied on their shooting, and it's kind of like a make or break type of deal. But I'm just wondering if like Iowa can keep up this at least like, I mean, they shot well tonight and they shot well in the previous game, but they can even shoot a decent rate against LSU. I mean, if that can actually secure a championship, like what that would.
But I mean, they didn't shoot great from three, and they were 7 to
Yeah.
23 tonight. So they're not as dependent on the three as the men are, and that's crazy
Yeah.
for me to say that. But they have more of an inside-out game than the men do. And although they're not great defensively, I think they're better at what they do best than the men at what they do best, if that makes sense.
You know, I feel like Caitlin Clark's passing tonight was just, I mean, some of the passes I know she had a couple turnovers tonight, but some of the passing she makes, I mean, I haven't watched her all season. I'm not going to say I'm a big fan of the women's basketball, but like, it's very impressive the way she like sees out the court and sees everything. Some of the passes she's made tonight just made me in shock.
Yeah, she's got all the tools.
Yeah. Well, again, I appreciate everything you do for the Hawkeye community. I just wanted to hop on here and see about your opinions for LSU. I know it's too soon, but I know you have future shows. I don't know. Are you going to have a show tomorrow, I assume?
I don't plan a live show tomorrow. I will have a preview tomorrow for Iowa LSU. So perhaps if I get spontaneous, we'll do a live show. But again, we got live show Sunday and then a live show Monday as well. So
okay. Is the post game going to be with anybody special, or you
on
have
Sunday?
anybody on?
I don't have anybody scheduled for Sunday. That invites out. I was told, like Tania Davis we had on recently, she's down at the Final Four. I know a lot of former Iowa players are down at the Final Four. But Monday we'll have Coach Close on, of course, wrapping up Iowa basketball and talking about the men's national championship. So we'll see what we can do for Sunday on short notice. But yeah, we'd love to have someone on.
Well, I appreciate you for taking my call, and I appreciate everything you do for the Hawkeye community. I haven't really hopped on the call as much, but I'll comment from time to time. But I've watched all of your shows throughout the football season. I'm a big Iowa football junkie, but I appreciate everything you do for the hockey community, and I just want to let you know you're doing a great job, and keep it up.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Nicholas. Have a great night, and thanks for calling.
You too.
Appreciate that call from Nicholas and his support and everybody's support here. We do have, let's see here, Organic Veil Radio hopping back on as a YouTube member. Thank you for that. And if you want to become a member, you can do so by clicking the join button next to From the Hawkeye of the Storm. And a reminder to please hit that like button. If you're here right now, just scroll down real quick, hit that little thumbs up button, folks. Hit the like button. It does help the show in the algorithm. And follow me on Twitter. At From the Hawkeye on Twitter, at From the Hawkeye on Instagram. Like the page on Facebook, From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Facebook. And then, of course, we also have an Amazon link. You can shop Amazon with us, and that's another way you support our show. All right, let's go back to our call-in line as we approach hour 3. We got to get to bed here soon. All right, let's get to our next caller here on our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey, this is Will.
Hey, Will.
Calling you from Dallas, Texas.
Hey, what part of Dallas?
Hey, I just drove in 12 hours the other day from Cedar Rapids.
Okay, so you're actually from up here and you drove down. Well, congratulations on the drive. That's I'm sure you're not regretting it.
No, don't care how sore the butt is. Watching that game in person wouldn't be anything better.
Absolutely. So where were your seats high up? Were they close to the court?
Oh no, we were in back of the back, way up in the corner, but it didn't matter. That place was pretty packed full of Iowa fans. It was great to see all the Hawkeyes travel there. I hope it translated well on television, but a lot of Go Hawks chants, a lot of IOWAs. I think that really juiced up a lot of the Hawk girls tonight. SC fans were They were. I mean, I talked to a lot of them after the game. They were shocked to see the fandom, the loudness, and the amount of fans that came on down to Dallas, and they were pretty beside themselves. They didn't have a lot to cheer about. I mean, Iowa came out and kind of took care of business, and even when SC took the lead for a little bit, it wasn't for that long, and the Hawks came back, and it was just a great game and great atmosphere, and great credit to Coach Daly and Aaliyah Boston. But I think I told you before, if Hawks win it all, where's Lisa's statues going to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. She's accomplished a lot, and up until this year, this is the one thing she hadn't accomplished, taking a team to a Final Four. And man, she may check off a couple more things on that list when it's all said and done. So yeah, I think that's all fair. I'm curious, did you feel like there were more Iowa fans there than Gamecock fans?
I mean, I don't know about visuals. I mean, it looked like there was, but I know from the volume, it definitely was very pro Iowa. A lot of big stripes of black and gold up and down the sections, and like I said, a lot of Go Hawk chants, a lot of IOWAs, and SC fans. If there was a lot of them, they didn't have a heck of a lot to care about, because as soon as they took the lead, we came back and took it. So they didn't really make a whole lot of noise. Most of them are pretty congratulatory. Some were a little salty, thinking that the fouls were going against them. I don't know about that. I thought it was relatively fair officiating. A couple of them, I think, went against us, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I think, and I know I'm biased, but yeah, I thought there was some bad calls against Iowa, and I know that's going to be a natural response when South Carolina's won 42 straight games. Their star player struggled with foul trouble tonight, but that's not necessarily Iowa's fault. And there were a lot of foul calls called against Iowa for the game. Let me see, personal fouls. I have that number here for the game. Iowa,
I think it was 18 to 20, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, Iowa got called for 18, and I think you're right. Let me see, South Carolina. Yep, 20. So pretty even there. But I did think there were some calls late in the game, especially that jump ball was a bad one. I thought Caitlin got fouled on the play where it went off on her leg, off of her leg out of bounds. I know she got banged up a little bit, dinged up on that play as well. So hopefully she'll be okay for Sunday. But yeah, I didn't think the officiating was great, but I also didn't think it was pro Iowa.
No, I didn't think it sided. I don't think it sided really maybe one team or the other. I think there was a couple key plays that really could have turned the momentum against the Hawks if SC had to capitalize on it. But luckily, we played great defense. We had great minutes from, pretty much everybody. Brady, Tanano, Gabby, even though she didn't score a whole lot. Sounds like she might be a little banged up, but she played a heck of a defensive game again. Obviously, Caitlin, 41. That's insane. She's again, like I said last time, Hawkeye fans, they gotta do a little self-reflection here and look at themselves and look at what we got, because it's probably ain't gonna happen again. And this is a really awesome place to be, and an awesome thing to experience, especially down here.
Absolutely.
I think watch the VT game versus LSU. VT was really in control of that for most of the game. That fourth quarter, they kind of let it slip away. They were up on Angel Reese a lot of single team defense against her, double team defense against her, and then the fourth quarter they kind of went away from that, got in a little foul trouble, and LSU was able to kind of claw their way back and then take the lead. So, I think if we put somebody on her, I don't know if Gabby's the right answer. And I know you said that you're going to take a look at your the notes and put your stuff together for tomorrow. But I think if we put somebody together that can play some decent defense on her, that's a lot of their offense. And I got a good feeling about Sunday if we can do that.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't know the best comparison to make to LSU. My first thought was maybe they're kind of like a Maryland, but maybe that's naive of me to even make that comparison. Angel Reese is tough. I mean, what is she, 6'2", 6'3"? My guess is that you're going to see Hannah Stolke on her quite a bit. I don't know how much Stolke played tonight. I still don't have the official box score from the university for some reason. They don't have that loaded yet.
She put in definite good minutes. I mean, Stolke,
yeah,
she might not hit the points box score very much, but she put in great minutes on defense. Was up on Aaliyah Boston, up on that other girl at 6'7". She was playing straight up, didn't really get into a whole lot of foul trouble, and I think she put in absolute great minutes for the Hawks. It was key to allow Sanonico to take a blow and sit down, and especially because she was a little bit in foul trouble there. I think three fouls there at the end of the game. But Hannah Stolke is going to be key. I think you're right when it comes to Angel Reese and playing kind of length on length with her.
Yep, I agree, and they'll rotate players on her, and they probably will double her, and they'll approach it maybe in somewhat similar fashion as they approached Aaliyah Boston. I know they're different players, but Angel Reese is really good. Don't get me wrong; she's really good. So they'll have their hands full. It's a different type of team, but for them to be able to game plan the way they did against South Carolina as quickly as they did, and my guess is, I don't know this, but the way tournament formats are typically set up, you have 3 full-time assistant coaches. If you're in a Final Four or you're in a 4-team tournament, you have 3 other teams. You've got 3 assistant coaches. Every one of those coach has a scout. So my guess is one of those coaches was already prepared for LSU prior to the South Carolina game. So whoever that coach is would then have the scout for Sunday, and they're ready. So, and I'm sure that's the case for LSU as well with Iowa. But I think Iowa's a little bit harder to prepare for than your average squad.
Yeah, and I think if anything, thing I'll kind of leave you with, and I'll let you get on with other callers and stuff in the show. But if you're a Hawk fan, you gotta look at this and say, we shot 7 for 23 from the 3. We shot 30%, which is a decent clip. Caitlin was 5 of 17. Warnock was 1 of 4, and Kate Martin was 1 of 1. We didn't have any ancillary players, like Gabby or like Warnock really hitting the threes like they have been in the past few games, other than like back to Purdue or even into Georgia, back at Carver. So I think any of those girls catch a little fire here in this championship game here on Sunday at 2:00 down here in Dallas, it's going to be hard to beat the Hawkeyes if we're on. If any of those other girls are on, if Gabby's on, if Warnock's on, if Kate's on, it's going to be real hard for LSU to put up a fight against Iowa.
Yeah, I agree. This team can win the national title, and they're 40 minutes away from doing so. They're the favorites, and anybody counting them out at this point probably hasn't been following this team very closely this last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree. We'll be there Sunday, and if I can get into the post game show with you, I'll give you a jingle. But go Hawks, and I'll let you get on to your next callers.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the call, and have fun down in Dallas.
Yeah, we'll do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've had a lot of great calls this evening. Let's go to our final caller of the night. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Who's on the line?
Hello, Corey. It's Darrell MVP. How you doing this evening?
Oh, Darrell MVP. Boy, you saved the best for last, didn't you?
Well, I mean, I guess that's one way to frame it. That's not the way I would frame it, but...
So let's be honest. Were you secretly upset that the SEC went down tonight?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not. This was a great game for women's basketball as a whole. Dynasties, to me, is what really hurts any sport. And I was very worried South Carolina was going to become the next UConn. Just follow the succession. Tennessee in the 90s, UConn in the 2000s, and then South Carolina to 2020 onwards. And that doesn't look to be the case. And I'm happy for the University of Iowa. I'm happy for Caitlin Clark. But Corey, you know what? There's still one more game left.
Still one more game left.
Right. And I'm not sure how aware you are of women's college basketball modern history, but usually the team that pulls off this massive type upset loses the next game.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. Yeah, and it's a short turnaround.
Yeah. I mean, we can look at it Mississippi State, after they hit a game-winning buzzer beater in UConn's 111 game winning streak, they lost at the buzzer, by the way, in the national championship game against Notre Dame. So, I mean, it's Arizona, when they upsetted UConn in the Final Four, they lost the national championship game to Stanford.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping Iowa and their coaching staff kind of goes over all these examples that have happened before and say, hey, this has happened to all these great teams who have beaten these quote-unquote dynasty teams. It can happen to us as well.
Let's remember, too, though, Drill MVP, I'm not discounting what you just said, but let's remember, you're going up against another team who's won how many straight games? Like LSU's red hot, too. So,
well, you got to be red hot at this point to make
Exactly.
the national championship game, Corey.
So if there's anything lacking, if you're not 100% in and bought in and ready, you're going to be in trouble.
Oh yeah. And I think losing the edge can be a bit of a worry now. It's the only legitimate worry I see for Iowa, because one of the key reasons LSU's a 3 seed was because of their strength of schedule. I mean, it was really bad compared to every other team around them.
Yeah,
it was like in
their record was a 1 seed record.
Right, but their strength of schedule wasn't nearly a 1 seed. Like, we're talking, I think before they played South Carolina, they were in the 90s or even in the hundreds. Like, it wasn't good at all.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, so I think Iowa's the more battle-tested team. I think they've got the best player. I think if Iowa plays their best, they should win against LSU. But, you only get one game, and anything can happen in that one game. But, yeah, something I haven't heard anybody been brought up is when Caitlin Clark got her second foul, the decision to keep her on the floor, I think, was the reason Iowa won the game. The fact that Iowa's coaching staff had trust, they didn't pull her out of the game at all, was the difference to me.
I also think not only is it trust, Drill MVP, but I think it's also an acknowledgement of, hey, we're going to lose if we take her out. I mean, I just don't know that they could have stuck with South Carolina if she plays any less than 38 minutes. I mean, that's literally so. Yeah, I mean, trust, but also acknowledgement of reality that they had to have Caitlin Clark basically play from start to finish to have a chance in this game.
Right, I understand that, but one of the things I worry about in these types of games where one team is just projected to dominate or win comfortably, I'll say, is you have a coach who tries to make the score respectable and not win the game. And I think in that moment, it could have been if she went for the win and it paid off for her.
Yeah, I agree.
And also, Aaliyah Boston, when she got that second foul, that was probably, I mean, I understand what she was trying to do, but you just can't do that. You got to be aware of the time scoring situation of the game. And just to not have that lack of awareness for National Player of the Year, it's just devastating.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's a big part of the game, her being out, and whether that's more on the coaches for not trusting her, or on her for not being more aware of where she was foul wise. Big turning point in the game.
Right. And I think that was the reason they couldn't she couldn't really establish a rhythm. So she goes in for like 5 or 6 minutes, she comes out, she has to sit out, she's ice cold, then she comes back in. She's having to play with a very physical game, and I just think her body never got used to it. And it kind of bothered her all night.
Yeah, no, I can't argue with that.
Corey, let me ask you a question about you. So you're 3 hours into a live show. Now you got a cowboy hat on. What's going through your mind right now?
What's going through my mind right now?
Yes.
Well, I'm thinking about how much sleep am I going to get tonight? That's what I'm thinking about right now, Drill MVP.
Well, you remember that one show you had that was like 4 hours or something like that?
Yes, I think it was after a Maryland football win a win at Maryland on a Friday night in October.
Do you think that we can ever have something like that replicated if Iowa does beat LSU to win the national championship.
Well, the only good thing about that, Drill MVP, is that game is not late. This game didn't start till like 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I know, which is
stupid.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's stupid, but sure, yeah. I think. Let's see. The game's at 2:30. Yeah, 4:30. Post game 5. Yeah, maybe we'll go till 9. Somebody better be ordering me DoorDash though, because that's right during my dinner hour.
Oh, gee. Well, I hope maybe your wife will order you some food.
Maybe she will.
Maybe she will.
She'll
I'm
just
sure
be happy
she's
to get rid of
wondering.
me for 4 hours. So.
Right. Does she ever comment about the show saying, "What are you doing? Why are you talking to people on the internet when it's like 2:30 in the morning?"
Does she ask me why? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, why you do it, or why are you so long on these calls, or whatever like that?
No, I think that ship has sailed. No, she's very supportive. I appreciate the support that she gives, and she I think she understands the gravity. She's not the biggest sports fan in the world during MVP, but she appreciates the gravity of a Final Four win, and it's all going to be done.
I understand it. Enjoy the moment, Corey.
Yep, it's all going to be done on
Enjoy
Sunday.
the moment.
It'll all be over Sunday, and whether they win or lose, the season will be over, and we'll have men's post game after the game on Monday. But it's pretty quiet during MVP until August and September when college football starts back up.
Well, you did hit your milestone of 5,000 that you wanted to.
Isn't that nice? Appreciate
Yeah, I
everybody
know.
who's subscribed.
No, you're fine.
And I appreciate Mike with the compliment here. Said best Iowa coverage all year. Appreciate that, Mike.
Yeah, you do a great job, Corey.
That's
probably why you're growing exponentially.
I appreciate you, Drill MVP. Even though you're not an Iowa fan, I appreciate you.
Yeah, well, I will admit there was one part of this game that upset me with you winning.
Okay.
And that was the fact Kentucky was the last team to beat South Carolina. And I don't even have that for women's basketball anymore.
That's true.
I mean, Kentucky women's basketball is horrendous.
I didn't realize that. That was in the SEC tournament, correct?
Yeah, it was the SEC championship game.
Yeah, I remember that.
But the only thing that Kentucky did that Iowa didn't do was we spotted South Carolina 15 points, and you all did. So, and also, I'm not sure if you saw the stat I posted, but South Carolina's largest lead of the game was 1 point. That doesn't even seem possible to me. Like, I watched that entire game, and that still hasn't registered with me.
Iowa basically controlled from start to finish.
Yeah, I know. That doesn't make sense to me, though, because I've seen South Carolina play the entire year, and did you see the stat at the beginning of the game? They win by an average of 29.5 points a game.
Yeah.
Like, that's brutal. And for Iowa just to woman handle them in this stage, it's just shocking.
So, Drill MVP, I'll let you answer this question from Thomas. He says, how surprised were you that Iowa was able to beat South Carolina? That's a very generic question, but I'll let you answer it, Drill MVP. How surprised were you at tonight's result? Okay, in the last 10 years of tournament play, I think this is the third biggest upset. So I'm very shocked. Number 2, I'm not sure, was 2013 when Louisville, as a 5 seed, beaten 1 seed in the defending national champion Baylor team with Brittany Griner, and then the Mississippi State over UConn. Yeah, I did not foresee this coming at all. And I thought of a lot of the reasons that actually played out in the game. I mean, South Carolina just dominated the glass. I thought they would wear Iowa down. I thought Sonano, O'Grady would get into foul trouble. I thought they would lose their depth. I thought they would get exposed. I thought players that hadn't played all year would have to come in a tough spot. And I thought Caitlin Clark would do her damage, but I didn't think it'd be nearly enough for them to overcome. I thought they would lose by like 10 to 15 points. So I was very shocked. I was just as surprised as a lot of people, and love to be wrong. That's all I'll say. I'm happy to be wrong tonight.
Yeah, I am too, Corey. I'm happy. And this is, again, like I said at the beginning of the show, this is good for women's sports and women's basketball more specifically, because
I agree.
not every team can do what South Carolina does and just be 4, 5, 6 inches taller than you, get every single rebound and put it back in. But with the way kids are playing basketball nowadays, there's going to be tons of shooters. And I think it's much more likely that teams are going to be able to replicate what Iowa does going forward than what South Carolina does going forward.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
You can't teach athleticism.
Right. And you can't teach size either.
Yep, exactly.
Which is with that one girl who's 6'7". I mean, my gosh. And credit to Cook for South Carolina. I mean, she was a dog tonight. She was their best player, in my opinion. Yep. And she was going toe-to-toe with Clark for a majority of that game. But, you know, in big moments, that's when greatness is really made, and that's what separated Clark from her.
I agree.
But, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, I was going to say, Corey, let me ask you this. You know, my final question I'll have for you is, South Carolina was the hunted. Now Iowa's the hunted because you beat the champs, so now you guys are the champs. How does it feel like to be the hunted?
I don't know about hunted. I national championship game. Maybe if this upset occurred earlier in the season, drill MVP, I'd buy into that. But, it's a national championship game. The line is pretty close. I think it opened at 1.5. I don't know. I don't look at it that way. And now if they win the national championship, then sure, next year, yeah, they will be considered the hunted. They are losing some pieces, but different role. No, there's no question about it. Different role.
Yeah, how does it feel, though, as just a fan? And have you ever been a fan of a sports team that's been on top and everybody's chasing you?
No.
Oh, it's a different feeling.
Yeah.
Because you're more critical of smaller mistakes, and every game feels like you got to win it. And if you don't win it by double digits, then you're not happy. I can say that as a Kentucky basketball fan. And with the highest of highs also comes the lowest of lows. So if you get upset by a terrible team or an unranked team, you're going to be pretty upset, Corey. But thank you for taking all these calls. Thank you for doing this. Congrats on 5,000 subs, Corey.
Thank you, sir. And we'll talk to you on Sunday.
Yeah. Can we get a yeehaw before you go?
Yeehaw. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Appreciate it, sir. Anything to get to bed, right? Anything to get to sleep. No, I appreciate your MVP calling in. And a reminder, folks, if you want to sponsor the channel, you want to sponsor the national championship game, the post-game coverage right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, email me from the eye of the storm at outlook.com. That's from the eye of the storm at outlook.com. You can also DM me through Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. All right? Support the show, please. Your donations are appreciated as well. You see in the bottom ticker, you can donate by Super Chat, as people have been doing. We appreciate everybody who donated by Super Sticker, Super Chat, all that good stuff. PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, all available as well. Fast Outdoor Food wants to know how it affects recruiting. How will this win affect recruiting? If they win a national championship, it'll help a lot more. But that's yet to be seen. Those are questions I don't have an answer to. As a brief recap for everybody, we've been here for 3 hours and 15 minutes. Oh my. The Hawkeyes defeating South Carolina in the Final Four. Incredible. 77-73. Caitlin Clark, 41 points on 15 to 31 shooting, 5 of 17 from 3, but perfect from the free throw line. 6 of 6 from the free throw line, 6 boards for Caitlin, 8 assists, 8 turnovers. Couldn't have done it without her. And she played 38 minutes. Just incredible. What a trooper. Monica Sonano played 26 minutes, hampered by some foul trouble, but 6 of 8 from the field, 18 points to go along with 3 boards. She's got to rebound better, but she had her hands full tonight. Kate Martin, how about Kate Martin with 7 boards, 7 points, and 2 of 2 from the free throw line. By the way, Monica Sonano was also 6 of 6 from the line. McKenna Warnock made a 3, had 5 points in 31 minutes. Gabby Marshall, no points, but 39 hard minutes. Addison O'Grady played 10 minutes, 4 points. Hannah Stolke, 2 points in 11 minutes. Molly Davis played 2 minutes. Sydney Falter played 3 minutes. It's incredible that this team was able to win with those stats. And we've talked about some of the team stats. 30% from 3, pretty good from the field overall. But, they took care of the basketball, didn't turn the ball over. Forced South Carolina into some turnovers, got killed on the glass, 49-25. But again, sometimes you can't measure heart and soul, and this team had a lot of it tonight, folks, and might just get this program a national championship. So again, appreciate everybody being here, folks. I am more than tired at this point in the show. So if my performance has dropped off here, I apologize. Again, consider donating to the channel. Consider sponsoring the show. Reach out to me. Support us. You can also buy our merch. That's a way to support the channel as well. A reminder, I'll be with you on Sunday following Iowa and LSU in the national championship game. We'll be live following the 2:30 p.m. tip on ABC. And again, post-game coverage following the game. I'll give you a preview tomorrow. Well, today. It's early Saturday morning. So we'll have a preview for Iowa LSU released in just hours. So, and then, of course, live post-game coverage on Sunday. 250 people still on at 2:15 in the morning? Thank you all. You guys are awesome. We will talk to you on Sunday, folks. Have a great night.